Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Before we begin tonight's council meeting, we have a public hearing. The public hearing is to consider and discuss the recommendations of the Planning Commission to council regarding amending and updating Mount Healthy zoning regulations. So I'd like to bring the public meeting to order. And I'll start off with Mr. Coker.
Thanks, Ross. Actually, John Young is here from Urban Fast Forward, and he's going to kind of walk you through a very brief version of our last, almost 2-year process to get us to where we're at today. So go ahead, John. Thanks.
Thank you, City Manager Coker and Council for having me, and Mr. Mayor. It's been quite a long process, I think, as Bill has alluded to. We were engaged with the city in the summer of 2019, so this is 2 years. We didn't let the pandemic slow us down. We had a presentation that we gave to council that should be in your packets or electronically accessible, as well as the full and exciting 135-page document of the zoning text. I will briefly go through my presentation here and give you a bit of an idea of what it took to come together and really kind of bring this code to fruition. So back in 2007, you guys adopted a comprehensive plan and made some zoning reforms then. And our firm, Urban Fast Forward, was hired in 2018 to do a bit of an update focusing on Hamilton Avenue and some of the other kinds of strategies that the city can employ to help revitalize the corridor. One of those recommendations was to look at reviewing the zoning code and updating it. So we had subsequent conversations after the planning process was finished for the Healthy Hilltops plan in 2018 about doing the zoning code redo. Right now, the zoning code, if you guys look at it, it's kind of a bit of a if A, then B, then C kind of ordeal. If you want to find out what's permitted in the Zone E, for example, the zoning code says everything that's permitted in Zone D is permitted in Zone E except for the following. So it's like, okay, well, I know it's not allowed in Zone E, but what's really allowed in Zone D? So you go to Zone D. And Zone D says, well, everything allowed in Zone C is allowed in Zone D except for the following. And so it continues to do this until you get to Zone A. And then Zone A really kind of has the meat of what is permitted in the zone, but then you have to kind of triangulate what zone you're in and where these uses are, and it kind of is very confusing. So one of the things that we were hired to do was to take all of that and unpack it and actually create a matrix or framework of new zoning code that would kind of reinsert those in a way where if you are a user of the zoning code, if you are opening a new business, or if you're trying to put a deck on the back of your house, you can actually find where the regulation is, and so it'd be clearer where what you're allowed to do with your property. So that was one of the things that we were tasked with doing. Another one was looking at conditional uses. There are a lot of conditional uses in the zoning code. We were looking at kind of strengthening some of the standards behind the conditional uses that go before the Planning Commission and City Council. We were also tasked with looking at some of the signage regulations for the business district and really kind of trying to figure out ways to make some of the elements that were expressed in the public engagement process for the Healthy Hilltops plan more allowed or more expressive in this zoning code. So we worked with the city and developed a zoning committee which was made up of several different community stakeholders. Many of them who were engaged in the Healthy Hilltops process, business owners on Hamilton Avenue and on Compton, and the process. We met monthly and reviewed the zoning code section of every single month until we had basically gotten enough of analysis from the code and from the city staff to really kind of begin to tackle what to do about reformulating this. So. We also looked at a lot of different zoning codes from around the area to see what are some best practices that other communities are doing that we can kind of incorporate into the code. So we looked at Bellevue, Kentucky, Yellow Springs, Ohio. We looked at the Cincinnati code because it's a giant code and it's got everything in it. So if you need to find something, you'll have it in that code. But we also looked at communities like Milford and other kind of suburban Cincinnati communities as well. We developed the frameworks for the draft in April of 2020, and then the committee came back together again in the summer and we went through and reviewed the revised zoning code and did a finalization of that in February of this year. We then presented that code to the zoning committee and to the business association in March, got some more feedback from them. And then in April, we met with the planning commission and really kind of went through a lot of the code with the fine tooth and made some revisions based on what the planning commission recommended. And the planning commission, we met a couple weeks later, and the planning commission decided to make a motion to recommend adoption of the zoning code to City Council, which is where it is today. I don't know if any of you guys on council, have you guys had a chance to look at the code at all? Yes? Excellent. You can see that the code is more visual. We have employed some graphics to help kind of show where setbacks are, where property lines should kind of go, especially if you're building new buildings or if you're renovating existing buildings. We've split all of those uses out into the different matrix for each zone. So now you can just say if I'm in zone E1 or E, for example, I can look at the matrix in the zoning code and find out if I can open a barber shop or an ice cream stand. So that's the kind of thing that kind of makes it a little easier for people to read. If you have, if there's a C in the box, that means it's a conditional use, which means you go to the planning commission. And so what we've done is we've taken a lot of the existing regulations with the code and made it easier and clearer for people to understand and to navigate through. So making this process easier is going to make it easier for people to do things in the city of Mount Healthy. It's color coded. So now you have like yellow corresponds to residential, and purple and turquoise corresponds with commercial and the central business district. We have also looked at doing some streamlining. So we found that there was not a lot of difference between the E zone and the E1 zone. So that is really kind of the same zone now. And then also we have created it's a process called a planned unit development district, which is basically a kind of a development zoning that is used between the Planning Commission and City Council. And that's really what your EEs, your DDs, FFs, and other kind of double-lettered zones were. So we've kind of incorporated those into the code in a more coherent fashion. So really the zoning map does not change. The text does a lot. And the text kind of reflects that. We've added new uses to kind of reflect some of the newer things that have come on since the last update in 2007. The other things are like, everyone's got Airbnb now. We have regulations for short-term rentals. We have stronger language in the conditional use section for food trucks and mobile vending, for group homes, and some of the other kinds of things that have come up as concerns from the zoning process. The other thing that we've looked at is 5G cell towers is a new thing. We have kind of adopted some regulations to kind of help navigate the process with the, FTC kind of runs that regulation, but we can kind of local municipalities can kind of, within a time frame, adhere to their own policy. So we've kind of strengthened some of that language there. We've also kind of worked on some process-oriented revisions. For example, we have a stronger process for granting variances. And really what the zoning code does now is it gives our boards of zoning appeals and the planning commission and city council more guidance on how to make findings of fact that will help kind of make sure that there's consistent decision making across the board. The other thing is that we're preserving the architectural review board, and that is now incorporated as a subsection of the planning commission. So there's a lot of things that kind of refer to that, and that will now refer to the architectural review board in this right spot. But also, if there's an opportunity, if there isn't one in place, there's kind of a plan for that now. We have better site guidance. So if you are going to develop a building, there's a different standards for the size. So let's say if you've got a larger development, you're going to need geotechnical. You're going to need to have engineer drawings. But if you're going to build a deck, you now have guidance on what you want to do. There's going to be less requirements for submission than if you're full development. So we've got more delineation for people who want to apply to do stuff in the city, and that will be helpful in allowing bill staff and the city to do their job and make accurate decisions based on the information that they have. We also looked at the parking requirements in the new code, and through the Healthy Hilltops process and the zoning committee process, we found that there was an abundance of parking in the city. So there is a parking regulation section, but those are numerical counts are not required for downtown and the rest of the city. But there are requirements for handicap parking. So if you're going to do a new development, you still need to have a certain amount of handicap parking available for ADA access. And then finally, I was just talking about before signage. We look at sandwich board signs for downtown are now regulated, and also we are allowing projecting signs, and we have adopted some of the best practices standards from that as well. So one of the things that came up through the process was a number of outstanding issues with the staff and the Planning Commission and the Zoning Committee, and we have resolved all of these issues. So just to kind of go over a couple of items, there was some concern about doing front yard gardens. We have developed some regulations for that. There's been apparently Airbnb is now allowing for storage. We have developed regulations that do not allow that, explicitly in the conditional use now. We've preserved the city's front yard fence regulations. We've done some other housekeeping items in regards to zoning permits and some other kind of minor things that were inconsistent with the current code that the city staff wanted to preserve. We have preserved those. And we've also, let's see here, revised churches to be conditional uses in all zones, and created this kind of non-conforming use certificate, which is actually kind of a really great process for if you've got a building that doesn't currently conform to the zoning code, and you want to be certified as a non-conforming use, which will allow you to continue using your business or building as it is. There's now a process that guarantees that, so in the future, the city says, oh, sorry, you're not non-conforming anymore. You can say, hey, I've got a certificate. So allowing for some of those kinds of options to be implemented for the city, and really kind of bringing the zoning code into a state where everyone can use it, and we can use it to help kind of advance the city's vision and the strategies that were outlined through our community planning process. So with that, I will take any questions from the council.
Who has questions, council?
Go ahead.
Jenny?
On the map, I couldn't, I missed it or whatever. When the color and it says OB, what's OB?
That's the office district that you guys approved in 2019.
Okay, all right.
That is not defined anywhere in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, okay, good.
It
It's
is
on the
in the
chart,
zoning
it's
code.
on the chart, but it's not defined or delineated what that entails.
In the new code, it is. It is,
You do talk about E and, no, that's not E and F, it's the C, Central Business District, and the E and E1, but you do not talk about OB.
OB is in the use charts.
Well, it's in the chart, but I'm saying in the narrative, you
Oh,
don't tell
yes.
what it is.
That's true.
Okay. I think that
And-
should be there.
Yeah, just
Okay,
some reference.
we can add that.
You mentioned on the map, we've got DD and FF. I didn't hear why the double letters.
The double letters are custom, so the current zoning code, DD and FF are like special multifamily or special industrial zones that were kind of a la carte approved by the Planning Commission and City Council in past years for specific reasons. So they kind of act like a planned unit development.
Oh, okay.
So we're just kind of grandfathering those as PUDs. So they'll stay the same on the map, but for future zoning, PUD process, it will be a different designation for whatever that is on the map.
Who else, council?
Said it does allow now for B&Bs and Airbnbs.
You have to go to the Planning Commission and City Council for approval on that, and there's a list of conditions that they have to follow in order to be approved.
I think it says the owner must live on the lot.
That is for accessory dwelling units.
Special.
accessory dwelling units.
Oh, okay.
Accessory what units?
Dwelling units,
Oh,
like a
dwelling
granny
units,
flat or
sorry.
something.
There's something in there for manufacturing. It talks about glue, size, and what is size?
That's from your existing code.
From the existing code?
Yeah,
Is that something they made back in the 1700s?
I think so. There are a lot of words in there that I was like, wow, this really kind of really gets into the nitty gritty of whatever the industrial manufacturing that they did not want to have in the code. And those are some things that we were considering. Is it a little bit too much to kind of just get rid of all of that? But at the same time, you kind of also want to keep, if you're not going to allow something, it's good to kind of have it listed there as like it's a conditional or not. Because the industrial zones, one of them is a fairly standard like light industrial zone, and then another one is kind of like anything's allowed in this zone except for with these specific conditions, and that's what all of those descriptions account for. That's how it's the G zone. So.
And Bob, with our
Yeah.
track record, as soon as we take that out, within 6 months, somebody's going to want to.
Somebody's going to want it. They're going to make size.
The glue
Okay.
factory is waiting in the
Whatever
wings.
that might be.
You have a section in there about cul-de-sacs and size of lots, and it says in a cul-de-sac, a lot has to have a minimum width of 40 feet at the front lot, at the first lot line.
Right.
Does that mean on the road, 40 feet in a cul-de-sac?
So the way the cul-de-sac is that you have the right-of-way and then you have the property line. So that property line is, of course, either rounded or it's probably trapezoidal, and that's where the 40 feet comes in.
So at the back of the sidewalk, basically?
Back of the sidewalk,
That has to be 40 feet. That seemed pretty,
And I think if you look at the definitions section, it will have kind of a delineation of how lot lines and lot widths are measured. Now for that zone, is that the A zone that's in, or the B zone? So that's typically in common with like the size of lot that's in those zoning districts. But if there is a desire to potentially narrow those lots or lot widths for smaller zones like the C or D zone, then I think that would be something I could add.
well, I had a question about all these sections that say there were fees as approved by council. And then I see when we come in, we've got a whole list of fees on our desk. I need to go over these.
Well, yeah, the only reason why that's on your desk is that, yeah, we didn't want to throw everything at you, but it's definitely goes hand in hand. So that's just kind of your first sight. Gordon's here. He got it to me late last week. And I'm going to ask for a committee, either go to committee or just an ad hoc committee of a review. Because even I was having a difficult time, and we can set a meeting up with Gordon where he can kind of walk you through, but it's very much long overdue. So it's separate, but we didn't want to throw that all in, and I just wanted to kind of start that conversation and get your mind going on it.
So we'll have a separate resolution or ordinance
Yeah,
to
yeah,
approve a
yes.
fee schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
The Architectural Review Board.
Mm-hmm.
It says in here that they will be compensated. We don't have any boards right now that are compensated, do we?
They're not, but what does happen, and we don't have an architecture review board.
Right.
Because we've just not been able to fill it. But what does happen is that, we have we don't have anybody on staff that's an architect. So when we have certain plans, they have to get stamped and approved, and we pay for that to happen. So if we were to get a board, that could be something that we could look at to say, okay, if you're on this board, then you could approve these plans. But, they get compensated for that, because that's
Yeah.
more of an expertise.
Well, one of the people has to be an architect, so
Right.
it may not be a resident.
Could be.
So it could be a consultant that's hired to be on the board.
Which we kind of already have, because we have to have a consultant or an architect to stamp certain plans when they're submitted.
And that's a consultant?
And we pay that person to do
Okay.
that, yeah.
And I just want to add that the language for the architecture review board is from your existing zoning ordinance. We just moved it into this ordinance. So it already existed.
Okay. And also, we talk in here about the Architectural Review Board, the Planning Commission, and the Board of Zoning Appeals. And it delineates the number of people and the type of people that are on each of those, except for the Planning Commission. Is that described? I think that may be described in somewhere
In
else.
our charter?
In the charter, maybe? Okay. We need to make sure that that's defined somewhere.
Yeah, it is in our charter.
And I think I have a referral to the charter in the section about the planning commission.
Yeah, it went to section 750 something or another of some, yeah, I didn't follow that, where it went. I think that's about all I have for now.
Anybody else?
I have a couple of questions. On page 12, it talks about the minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet and also the minimum house size of 900 square feet. Was there any discussion about making either one of those larger?
There was some discussion about making the minimum house size, dwelling size larger or smaller, I believe.
Smaller?
Yeah, I mean, that's why that's in there. I mean, there was a discussion, and we actually modified this not too long ago to keep it at that kind of a compromise because of you know, the interest that comes up with small houses, tiny homes and everything.
Tiny homes and that.
Yeah.
Right, I remember that. I was just wondering
We
if,
kind of went with 900 because I know there was examples cited when we went through that process of houses already existing that are 800 feet, 700 feet, things like that. And I guess what we always say, I mean, well, no, not to go up, but you could always, they could always go to BZA to go backwards, but, once can't, if it's allowed to go up, so.
yes,
Yeah.
that's easy to go. I was just curious if we didn't want to revisit that and adjust that upwards. So I know that the Habitat home on St. Clair and Elizabeth Street, we actually requested to put a basement in just for potential additional living space, because we thought it was kind of small. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on that. 900's awfully small. And then if you put it in next to, or in an area where there's 2,000 square foot homes, what's that do to property values? That's my concern.
Yeah, I mean, I think 900 was established to keep it from going even any smaller, and they can always come here, 900 is, I guess, yeah, it is on the smaller size, but I recall at the time, we got, there was definitely a lot of input in our decision on that, so.
And we've got some really small lots too in town,
Right.
so.
We do. 5,000 square feet is 1/8 of an acre, so it's 8 homes on 1 acre. So that was something that I saw. And then let's see, Bill, the part that I called you about was on page 44, I believe. And I wasn't sure about where it says foliage has to be set back 1 foot from basically from the sidewalk. I think that is, look at my notes here. Yeah, number 2, 155.091, number 2. Fences, walls, and foliage adjacent to any public sidewalk shall be set back at least 1 foot from the inside of the sidewalk. I mean, we got a lot of them that are right on the sidewalk right now, so walls and, people landscaping, so I guess,
Well, anybody that's there now is grandfather.
right, no, I get that, I'm just wondering,
I guess, I think
Okay.
it helps for,
and I really am concerned about what we mean by foliage, so are we just talking about bushes, a row of petunias, because a lot of people are taking their landscaping right up to the sidewalk. So,
So what's your, I don't, okay.
I guess
so what's your
my
concern? Is it-
concern is what are we leaving ourselves open for? I mean,
Right now, it goes all the way to the sidewalk. This is going back a foot. Do you think it should go back further?
no. I think a foot's fine, but I just think, yeah, it's gonna, again, that's gonna be hard to police, I think, so. We'll see. I was just surprised when I saw it there. I was like,
Is that foot where it's planted, or is that where the leaves come to?
Sure, where it's, I mean, it's,
Foliage is leaves.
Foliage is the leaves, right? It should be off the sidewalk.
so,
I will say that 1 foot off of the sidewalk is a general regulation in a lot of communities.
I saw that in
Yeah.
your note.
Foliage typically means that if the foliage is acting as a fence or a barrier, so it's like a shrub or a hedge or some trees, I would consider that to kind of be the interpretation, up to the interpretation
Okay.
of the zoning official. So, but in my experience, regulating zoning codes, we've never really considered petunias a fence. So,
Okay.
there's some very aggressive petunias.
No, I just wanted to make sure, so what exactly we're talking about here, because I know on Elizabeth Street, when we redid Elizabeth Street, we did put up some retaining walls that go right out to the sidewalk. So, does that apply here, or does not apply here, I guess?
I don't think a retaining wall, I mean, a retaining wall is to hold the dirt back. It's not,
Yeah,
you know,
okay,
and
I'm just-
it's for the sidewalk. So that's not, yeah, that's why that's put there.
Okay.
Not a fence.
It's not foliage.
Right.
No, we got, and I know there are some fences, yeah, there's fences inside the city limits now that are right on the sidewalk, so, in the front yard, so.
I mean, there was a discussion during the committee of removing it. Gordon, that was one of his things, but there was pushback, and we want people to be able to have decorative fences in their front
Okay.
yard.
Yep.
And decorative is defined as split rail,
Yep.
wrought iron,
The same ones under the existing code.
right.
Yeah.
And then page 88, there was discussion about feather signs.
There's a temporary sign.
Yeah, and I think they have them down at the cellular place on Hamilton Avenue. I think that's what they're, the kind of, they bow up and come down, and they were not, there was discussion about it, but there wasn't anything really about, actually, those are not allowed unless it's approved by the planning commission, so. Let's see, where did I see that at?
I don't see it on page 88.
Balloons, balloon signs, strings, light bulbs, pennants, streamers, banners, or flags, except, let's see. Yeah, and then in your comments, it says, feather signs, this will also be added. So I was just curious,
Can and will be added.
can and will be added, so I'm assuming we're going to add feather signs in there also? As,
Yes.
that, okay. And these will be specifically permitted by the city manager. Wait a minute, let me see how this reads again. Yep, and then it makes it a comment about only of city events. So I know that or not Cincinnati Bell, but the cellular place down on Hamilton Avenue has those type signs that are out in front of their building.
So does Square Mile.
Yeah, 1 square mile does, yes.
Yeah, so does the Dairy Bar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yep. So those will all be grandfathered in then?
I don't think those are allowed in the current zoning code.
Well, they're actually not listed, and I think that's what Gordon's comment is here about feather signs. This can and will be added. So currently, they're not in there. So I just want to make sure who we're impacting here.
I think also that type of signage would be regulated under temporary signs, so you would have to get a permit, like a temporary signage permit for that. So you can kind of, and the way the temporary signs work is that you can have them up for a maximum of 21 consecutive days for any single permit period, and a maximum of 3 permit periods may be permitted up to calendar years. So if you are a seasonal business, let's say operating from the spring and summer, that will cover 64 days consecutively, and I'm sure there's some ways you can probably strategically space that out to cover most of the season. So,
Okay, yeah, it was just, I noticed them and I've seen them down, I think the cellular place has them up all year round, so. Those were the only questions I had. Those might be some issues that we need to talk more about.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Redding. Anybody else? Questions? Anybody else in the audience have any questions regarding this? Yes.
I would go up there so people
Yeah.
can hear.
Hi, do I need to
Sure, give us
give my
your
address
name.
and all that, or? Okay, Karen Arnett, 7373 Hickman. I guess I just wanted to ask about this issue with the foliage and walls being set back a foot. I live on one of the oldest streets in Mount Healthy, and on the older streets, the houses are very close to the street. There's very little front yard, if any. And in a way, I think that's kind of a charming aspect of Mount Healthy, that we have these historic portions of our city. And so I just wondered, I know of several places where there are little walls that go right up to the sidewalk. And I just wondered if this restriction of having a foot setback is absolutely necessary, since the council already has mentioned that there are a lot of places around the city that already have foliage and walls and/or walls right up to the sidewalk. So if it hasn't been a problem so far, is it something that needs to be changed now? So I just wanted to put that out there, because I personally like seeing the little walls that people have built. There's one right over here on Compton at the north end of Hickman. So thank you.
Okay.
I don't really think we're talking about retaining walls, because that's
I
more of
don't
a
either.
structural
No, that's-
purpose,
Why
right?
not?
Right.
But putting fences up to the sidewalk can be problematic, allowing the dogs to get there. I mean, and it is, I mean, this was discussed a lot. There's reasoning behind this. You know, the foliage, you don't want it growing up to the sidewalk, then soon it's blocking the sidewalk. This at least gives some direction, saying trim your bushes back at least a foot, so that you people can to do that. So, I mean, there was a lot of discussion in this, and this, like John said, this is pretty typical. And we're not going to go, and again, if people have fences or they're grandfathered, right? It's just going forward, trying to establish some things.
Okay, anybody else? Yes.
Adam Dunlop. I live over here on Perry. As in regards to the concern of house sizes, square footage size, maybe perhaps instead of doing a flat 900, you do like a percentage based off of the surrounding homes in that area, so that you're not worrying about the property value going down, just as a thought.
Well, that's an excellent idea. I think our last discussion a few years ago, didn't the lot size determine the size of the square footage? I mean, the smaller the lot, the smaller the square footage. That would be allowed. Is that correct, or am I just
I
dreaming?
mean, there was a lot of discussion, and I think a lot of times when we started to dig into this, we realized that our square footage isn't really big, you know, and so that was kind of how we came up with the 900 as a starting point.
I was thinking 900 was an average for Mount Healthy.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, too.
Yeah.
Like,
Existing homes.
wow, I find that hard to believe, but, okay.
Yeah, it could be, but I don't know.
And I think there is a calculation of, you can only use so many square footage of a lot for for a dwelling. So in other words, you can't put an entire dwelling
Right.
up, yeah, on 99% of the lot, basically.
Always setback.
Yeah, you always have.
There's always setback,
There's a
even with
percentage,
neighbors.
but
Right.
We'll
I don't
discuss
recall
it.
what that is.
Exactly.
Anything else? Anybody else on council? Questions?
I mean, our zoning official, Gordon Wong, is here. I mean, he's going to be the one that's going to be administering this. I don't know if anybody has anything specific for him, or I asked him to come just in case.
Or is there anything he would like to tell us that we haven't covered that you want us to consider?
Gordon was, I mean, he was very much involved in the process and had Bill and him review. They're part of the planning commission process.
Sure.
So he had his day. And I mean, and honestly, there were things we agreed to disagree on, or he suggested we included. There were some things that we didn't. I joke, you know, one of the things Gordon always was concerned about was with the chickens, the number of chickens, but we stayed with what we had. So it was a good back and forth. If I just may, real quick, and we can wrap this up. So, this is another reason why you see this input. I mean, obviously, I don't know, John's probably already made the changes that we're talking about. That's usually how he works. He's got it probably updated. And what we'll do is he'll send us that link and we'll update the one. That's why we don't keep printing out these things, because it would just be a massive undertaking, because things can change, page numbers can change and things like that. So hopefully council's comfortable with this. We can always print them out. If anybody wants to come up, we'll print them out for them, but we're just trying to curtail that as much as we can. So we will repost that, and it'll be on the site for another month. And if there's specifics that we, you know, between now and then that you want to change and discuss this, you know, we covered under the discussion as we go through and passing this, that's obviously up to you guys' discretion. I think we've made a few modifications that I think that Bob pointed out that were noted but weren't in there. So that's how I hope the process can continue to go. We could take the first reading tonight. The only attachment to that was just showing that the Planning Commission had recommended that. The actual document sits on the website, and then we'll continue. We'll update that as of tomorrow with these changes, and if there's anything else, we'll consider at the next meeting. I won't be here, but Mayor will, and I'm sure it'll be fine. So,
Okay.
anything else?
No, does anybody else have any questions before we close this out? All right. I've been closing the or the public meeting session of council. Meeting is adjourned. We're going to move directly into the council meeting. So if you will please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Lord, look lovingly on this group gathered here. During this meeting, as we discuss and deliberate on issues of importance to this council, help us to be guided by your Spirit. May we be wise in our discernment, balanced in our judgment, fair in our decisions, and visionary in our planning. Though we may at times have differing views, may we listen to one another and be guided by our common goals. May we always be mindful in our words and actions of what is best for our city and our citizens in our community. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Well, there it is. Over for that.
Welcome, everyone. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lingo?
Here.
Mrs. Moody?
Here.
Mr. Parsons?
Here.
Mr. Redding?
Here.
Mrs. Dosa?
Here.
Mr. George? Ms. Sheets?
Here.
Okay, Mr. George is absent from tonight's meeting. Is there anybody here who'd like to excuse them?
I make a motion to excuse Mr. George.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to excuse Mr. George. Second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Dosa. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. You have before you the minutes from our May meeting, May 18th. For you. Joe's already turned in his corrections. Does anybody else have any corrections? We'll have to go through the ones that Joe.
Okay, you want me, Page, go ahead. Ladies first. I'll knock mine off while you're doing yours.
We'll tag team it, how about that?
Okay, that sounds great.
Page 3, under Mr. Erickson's 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bullet point number 7, it should be going, G-O-I-N-G, not gong. And then, go ahead.
That's it.
Yeah, on page 2.
On page 2, under public input, Ann Ketzer,
Spoken.
the second line says, "She has now spoke." It should be, "She has now spoken." And back on page 3, under Nathan Valentino, the last bullet point, second line, it says, "While at times we may not have seen eye to eye, we always have had respect for them." It should have always had respect for them. And then on page 5, "We Thrive," Cindy Sheets. The fourth bullet point down should be farmer's market.
Yeah. I see that, yeah.
And then the last bullet point, a public health survey was sent out to Hamilton County residents, so instead of for, so hospital facilities know what is needed. And under city manager's report, the third paragraph, actually, North Elizabeth Road project goes out for bid on June 9th. At this point, it has, "We will know who the contractor will be." It says, we do, at this point, we do not know who the contractor will be.
I think that was referring to June 9th, wasn't it?
Well, this is from the May 18th minutes.
But does it mean that at June 9th?
Well, actually, what really should state is the Elizabeth Road project bids will be opened on June 9th.
Oh,
It doesn't go out to bid. So
okay.
probably better, North Elizabeth Road project bids will be opened on June 9th.
Okay,
At this point, we do not know who the contractor will be.
So maybe just change it to, "At that point, we will know who the contractor will be."
That'll work.
Yeah,
yeah, either way.
that works.
And then, let's see, on page 6, the very last bullet point under Chief Damasi, "We encourage council to pass 3 resolutions in hope that the state will get involved." So not "is hope," but "in hope that." And on page 7, under ordinance 21-1951, Mr. Redding would like to call a streets committee meeting instead of commit it.
Might be right, though.
And then under old business on page 8, Mr. Parsons made a motion. And then the second bullet point or second paragraph under old business, Mr. Coker needs direction regarding North Elizabeth sidewalks at the June 15th meeting. He will need a motion from council to execute the engineering.
You should execute it.
Communicate.
To communicate to the engineer, okay?
I just noticed,
Those were all my changes.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just noticed that, like, for page, we were just on the last page, but like page 2 where it says North Elizabeth Street, it's not consistent. It'll say North lowercase, and then you go to the next page and it's uppercase. So are we just gonna make them all uppercase North, as in North North?
I don't know if that makes a difference, does
That's
it?
what I'm saying, doesn't make it, I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but it's just,
There's no official North Elizabeth, that's just what they refer to it as. Cindy?
Question on page 2, under Alicia Devon, the public input. She's not a resident. My question was she the one that actually received the letter, or she was the one that was speaking? And is she the owner? Because I didn't think she was the owner.
No, she's not the owner.
She's not the owner.
But it says that she received a letter from the chief. So did she receive the letter?
She's an employee there. Technically, she may have. It wouldn't have been addressed to her. The letters were delivered to the businesses, so I don't know who received it, but the letter would have been addressed to the owner.
I mean, from my point of view, is I would like it to designate that she was not the owner, because we found that out through the discussion, that she was not the owner. It was somebody else that was speaking on her behalf.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think what the minutes are supposed to do is reflect what they're saying. I don't know if we can kind of get in there and modify how we want it. I don't know that. I mean, I don't know.
I think these were hand-delivered, so she may have been there when it
Right.
got delivered.
Melanie can, all we do is make.
I mean, she was reading the letter of what she.
And I totally get that, but I mean, from my perspective is, if we would go back and look at our history about who was speaking, she is not the owner. She is.
Doesn't say she's the owner in here, does it?
She's the owner.
Yeah, she doesn't say it.
The owner did not speak that night.
She just says that she got up to speak, and it doesn't say she's the owner. If we want to know who the owner is, we can look on records to see that.
Well, it's in the next,
It says, yeah,
it's in the
Mr.
next person.
Erickson, he stated
Where
who the owner
Palma
is.
Simmons talked, it's, I think, one of them said.
Erickson, the third. Belita Harper is the owner.
Yeah,
and
it's
here
under
this
Mr.
evening.
Erickson.
Under Erickson, yeah.
Yeah, and it says that she's the owner and that she is present, but it doesn't say she didn't speak.
Right.
Well,
She didn't speak.
that's just my feeling, so.
Okay. Anything else, council? Ask for a motion to adopt as corrected.
I make a motion to adopt the minutes as corrected.
second.
Okay, Mr. Parsons has made a motion to adopt, and Mr. Redding has seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Correspondence, I do not have any correspondence. Does anybody else have any? Okay, guests and special events. The Chief Demasi, he's still here? Come on up, sir.
Good evening. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce two of our newer officers here to be sworn in by the mayor. Unfortunately, during the COVID restrictions, we were not able to do this, so we thought we would give them their moment of glory today. So it's my pleasure to introduce Police Officer Corey C. He was hired in October of 2020, actually. He is a 2001 graduate of W.P. Davison High School in Mobile, Alabama. Officer C served in the United States Army beginning in March of 2002, and he served through February of 2012. During his military service, Officer C was deployed 4 times to combat theaters in both Kuwait and Iraq. For his meritorious service, he received the Iraqi Campaign Medal with 5 campaign stars, the Army Achievement Medal, the Army Good Conduct Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, and the Iraqi Campaign Medal. He was honorably discharged in 2012. From there, he went to ITT Tech, where he earned an associate's degree in computer science, and in 2020, he graduated from the Butler Tech Police Academy. Officer James Corzan was hired in January of 2021. He is a 2016 graduate of Milford High School. In 2017, P.O. Corzan attended the St. John's University in New York, where he studied Homeland Security. Shortly thereafter, Officer Corzan returned to Cincinnati and continued his studies at the University of Cincinnati. There, in 2019, he graduated summa cum laude receiving a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Officer Corzine attended UC Claremont Police Academy, graduating in 2019. So Mayor, could you do the honors for Corey and Jim?
Absolutely. Raise your right hands. You can face the audience to get better pictures, feel free. Just repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, the Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio, and the laws and ordinances of the City of Mount Healthy, to which I am appointed, and to the best of my ability will discharge the duties of this office. Congratulations.
I just want to quickly mention that we are very lucky to have both of them with us. They are exceptional officers. They are very much in tune with the community policing philosophy that we have embraced, and so far they have been excellent ambassadors to our city and to our community, and particularly the youth in our community. Both are instrumental in a lot of different activities, so we're proud of both of them, and we're very thankful for their service, and we thank their family members who are all here, but apparently, according to them anyway, are very shy to come up and be introduced. So thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to bring them
Chief,
forward.
thank you.
Welcome, officers, welcome.
Officers, do you want parents or anybody come up and get a picture with you?
Yeah, we'll take it for you.
We'll take a moment.
Go for it.
We're not that shy.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. You guys want to do individuals for family? Ready? Hey, Corey, step out just a smidge for me. Appreciate you. 1, 2, 3. Got one more coming. Hold on.
Got another family member coming.
Corey, you want to switch out with him? Get a picture of him again. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, good.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
Got them? Thank you, officers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
joining our force.
Thank you.
Hey, he passed his test. He's a cop now. I figured you did.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to public input. Is anybody here who would like to address council tonight? Let's give it a moment. I'm moving ahead too fast.
When you walked in, what I said to you. Listen, yeah, Joseph's mom, so we have to go back to their meeting. Okay, it's good to see you.
Okay, Ann, you're up first.
Good evening. Ann Ketzer, 7920 Elizabeth Street, as you all know. I'm here to talk once again about the North Elizabeth Road Improvement Project. I was hoping you got the documents ahead of time. I sort of put in a summary document because I listened to the last council meeting on YouTube and watched it, and there seemed to be some confusion about some things I had said, and I thought it was pretty clear, but I didn't read the documents I had presented to you, so I thought I better just bring some clarity to it because I don't know when you will be voting on this, but I would like to just walk through it, and I'll try to be as concise as possible. To date, most of you have visited our street and taken the time to walk through with the plans with the mayor and to see exactly the impact of the street improvement project and the sidewalks. It demonstrates that you really do care about us and our neighborhood, and you know that we consider our little section of Mount Healthy to be a little bit different and special, and a little treasured, unique space of our community. There are lots of area neighborhoods that could be considered when we talk about sidewalks and the lack thereof. The ones I cited are not in Mount Healthy directly, but the area in Green Pine, if you drove down Green Pine, you would see that most of Green Pine does not have sidewalks, especially down at the cul-de-sac end of that. Covered Bridge Road has no sidewalks. Some of the streets that adjoin it have sidewalks, but on one side of the street only. And parking is varied as to which side of the street. It's not necessarily associated with where the sidewalk is. The planning commissioner, or I'm sorry I didn't get his name, who spoke, mentioned Yellow Springs, Ohio. And it was funny because that had been brought to my attention as one city that has a concept called walking streets. They don't have sidewalks on all of their streets. They have some streets that are quiet, that are less traveled with traffic, with motor vehicle traffic, and they consider themselves walking streets. And just to let you know that we're not the only place in the world that maybe is requesting no sidewalks. Some streets, with especially dead-end streets, do not invite a lot of traffic, either pedestrian or vehicles, so they would be considered for no sidewalks at all. As a resident of this street for over 31 years, it's been my honor to represent the property owners. I've spoken to all of them, and I've tried to be objective in my presentations. So I did bring some summary on the second page, the talking points. Just to bring clarity, there's 7 property owners on the east side of the street. 1 wants sidewalks on both sides of the street, and 1 is abstaining, and the rest do not want sidewalks. There's 4 property owners on the west side of the street. 1 wants sidewalk, but only on one side of the street, but not on her side of the street. She wants it on the opposite side of the street. And on the private lane, 0 property owners want sidewalks leading down to their private lane. So that means 14 of 17 property owners do not want sidewalks at all, and see that sidewalks will be not used by very many people, and it's a waste of taxpayer money. Someone said as new families move in, they'll need sidewalks. One person told me at one time there were 31 children being raised on our street when it had no sidewalks, and it was just as it is now. And everyone was safe. All residents really want is a drivable street with no humongous potholes, and we want adequate drainage. The property owners have not taken a vote on who wants sidewalks on one side of the street or the other. We know who doesn't. None of them want sidewalks, except for the 2 I mentioned. But I didn't go on the west side, east side thing. If you decide that we have to have sidewalks somewhere, I didn't entertain a vote on that because I don't think it's our decision to make. I could do that if you wanted, but they seem pretty evenly divided in terms of where they would want the sidewalk. If parking is on the west side of this street, then it seems that most of the vehicle and pedestrian traffic is to and from the farm, which is on the west side of the street. It seems logical to put the sidewalk on the west side of the street. However, those yards are closer to the street and would suffer more of an impact visually and property-wise with the sidewalks that close to their house. For example, the corner house, the Hartman house, the sidewalk would be about 11 to 12 feet from their family room window, their bay windows, with the road widening. And then if you extend the sidewalk to the full impact of what the plans say now, it puts the sidewalk almost into their family room. In fact, they joke that they're going to have to open their windows to shake hands with people if they walk by. That's how close it would put. On the other side of the street, however, there would have to be a retaining wall, and it would be very close to the side of their street, and the side of their house, and they would lose a good portion of their driveway. The opposing point is that there are 3 more residents on the east side than there are on the west side. The farm takes up a good portion of the west side of the street, as you know, And that if there's parking all the way down that side of the street, we don't see the people get out of their cars, walk across the street to walk up a sidewalk, and then cross the street to get back to the farm. They're going to walk in the street like they do now and in the grass and the yards that they have for their whole lives. So the pros and the cons of the sidewalk seem to be offsetting. It doesn't seem to make sense to have a sidewalk on either side. It's more of an impact on the west side of the street, and the east side, where there would be less of an impact, no one would really use it. What's the sidewalk for? Where would they be going? Who's walking there? Who's going to be walking down to see the mailboxes and garbage cans of the people at the private lane? So it's 82.4% of the homeowners. We all hope that the final decision is to put no sidewalks in, to understand that we can have a walkable city without sidewalks. According to the city administrator, that parking has to remain on the west side of the street because of the one fire plug that's in the middle on the east side. So they want the fire lane to be on the east side. But there are many streets in our city, in the city of Mount Healthy, where the fire lane, there's parking on the side of the street where there are fire plugs. Joseph Street, for example, has parking on both sides. Tree loss is significant with the street widening alone. No professional assessment has been done as far as we know, but we know that adding sidewalk to the west side will immediately take out one additional large tree on the farm property. It's fairly clear that most street parking will be related to the farm, and pedestrians exiting those cars will not cross the street to use the sidewalk on the other side to get back over, as I said. There's no turnaround at the bottom of the street, so parking on the west side, everyone who parks on the west side has to drive down the street, turn around in somebody's driveway to come back up and park. This area of Mount Healthy has always been pastoral. It was a farm that was subdivided to make the homes that you see now. It's been quiet. The Summey farm property was sold off and developed, and the street retained its feel of pastoral setting. You saw for yourself that it's quiet and peaceful there. Lots of trees, lots of green. Any effort to limit street width and the width of a grass strip between the curb and any sidewalk to a minimum would be requested. If we have to have a sidewalk, if the street has to be widened to an extent to keep the minimum impact possible, to not extend it to make it look prettier. We want as much green as we can. We don't want to lose green. All current property owners purchased their properties or stayed since birth, never expecting sidewalks, and now only 2 of the more recent property owners want sidewalks. 2 additional recent property purchasers do not want sidewalks, and a 3rd recent owner abstains. Even the 5 newer property owners since 2010 are evenly split on the sidewalk issue. So we discussed with the residents in various discussions that I had in conversations, why does council want to have sidewalks on our street when it's clear that the residents who have their homes there do not really want them? And if it's to enable, we know that there's one disabled resident at the bottom of our street. I think he still lives there. I'm not sure about that. But he might use it. Farm traffic is now largely because of the food pantry, which may be temporary. We don't know how long that food pantry is going to exist. I thought it started up because of the pandemic and the needs related to that, but we don't really know how long that's going to go. But that's 4 days a week that they run the food pantry for about 3 hours each time, I think. People will walk to the side of the street or walk right down the middle as they do now and have done for over 100 years, and the sidewalk would really lead to nowhere. If it's to invite traffic, the privacy and quiet atmosphere has been valued by our residents forever. And many feel safe now, but also feel vulnerable and do not want to invite a lot of increased foot traffic to or from their homes that sidewalks invite. Safety is an issue. We have one disabled resident who's blind. She's here now today. She's shy, doesn't want to speak. And her husband, they live on the west side. They're concerned the foot traffic will be closer to their front porch, where she spends a lot of her time. And the sidewalk on the west side will put foot traffic very close to the corner property home, where I said before, the Hartman home. Appearance, the street widening alone will have a huge impact on the pastoral feel of our area, and adding sidewalks will increase the negative impact. Not every street in Mount Healthy needs to look the same. North Elizabeth has a long history of being a quiet, peaceful, shaded, lightly traveled neighborhood and a rather unique section of the city to be treasured and preserved to every extent possible. The issues that have yet to be addressed or communicated to residents, it's possible they've been addressed, but we just haven't been told, which I guess I wouldn't expect to be told, really. I don't expect you to communicate everything to us. But there's been no professional assessment of immediate or long-term tree loss. We stand to lose a good portion of our very stately trees, 50 to 75-year-old trees. Maybe some are older than that. Potential turnaround at the end of the street, similar to that on North Hickman, so the cars do not have to access private driveways to turn around and park. That has not been addressed as far as I know. And the minimal width possible for a tree line, the section of grass between the street and any sidewalk, that has not been made clear to me, and it might be made clear to the engineer who wrote the plans, and James may know that, but it's not clear to us exactly how wide and setting. I think Fritz calls it the beauty strip, the strip between the street and the sidewalk. If we can minimize that, the impact if there has to be a sidewalk. So what I did was I made a summary table so you could compare, and you can see that the issues really offset each other. We have less property owners on one side, but more residents on that side. There's 19 residents on the east side and 17 residents. That changed. We recently lost one of our residents. She died last week. We have 2 disabled residents, one in a wheelchair. This is on the east side. And the homebound person on oxygen is now deceased. And I don't know what her family's going to do with that property right now. On the west side, we have our blind disabled resident. She said that I could use her as a model or something. She's hiding back there behind her glasses. She doesn't want to speak. But she is concerned about her safety. She spends a lot of time on her front porch. The yard frontage to the home, from the street to the home, is deeper on the east side than it is on the west side. And the street widening alone, we don't have a professional assessment of the tree losses, so I can't really say that. And we know that there's going to be a huge impact with the farm property in terms of moving the fence back, which will happen with the street improvement project anyway, and the loss of trees which will happen with simply the road improvement project. And the retaining wall issue has really not been resolved at the bottom. The mayor told me that he consulted with the engineer and that at the bottom of the street on Fritz's property there would not need to be a retaining wall, even though we sort of thought there would be because of the hill. But I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe put a slide in there or something. I don't know. It's my recommendation that council reconsiders carefully the apparent goal to make every street and neighborhood in Mount Healthy to look the same. We don't want to look like Seward. We don't want to look like the middle part of Elizabeth. We don't need to look like Joseph Street. We don't need to look like Perry Street. We can be different. It's okay to treasure our little section of the city. Our street has always been walkable, even when it was a dirt and gravel road leading to the property, to the Summey property, and I can attest to that because when I was a little girl, I would walk on that dirt and gravel road and go to the dairy and buy my chocolate milk for a nickel. I remember it well. I've aged myself considerably here, but I can tell you that.
Yeah, I used to pay 3 cents, so I must be older than you.
You are older, I think, Ross. I don't know. We'll have that discussion sometime. Widening our street and filling in our stellar potholes might invite faster traffic. We understand that. So a speed hump might be a consideration from at least somewhere between the farm property and Adams Road. As the street is widened, I think that there would be maybe increase. And if that's your reason for wanting sidewalks, then take the sidewalk money and put a speed hump in there and slow the traffic down. We're used to slow our traffic. This traffic is very slow now because of the 3-foot wide and deep potholes that we have throughout. So the traffic is zigzaggy and rocky, and it's slow because cars have been totaled because of it, actually. The Hinkles lost a car. Their suspension went out. But anyways, a speed hump would take care of that if you're worried about safety. And please consider the uniqueness that each area brings to the city in terms of history and community, and help us preserve what we feel is valuable and what Mount Healthy can offer new residents. Why take away what we consider a special feature of our neighborhood? cutting down trees that are in some cases 50 to 100 years old and taking away green space in order to put sidewalks in that no one will walk on or needs to walk on seems a travesty. Why destroy what is beautiful and healthy about our street? If there's a fervent need, and my father-in-law, I think it was, would say, if there's a bee in the bonnet to make Mount Healthy into a cookie-cutter community where every street and neighborhood look and feel the same, and in doing so, you're willing to take away anything and everything that makes each part of our city special, then maybe you would consider an alternative, like adding a walking lane or a bicycle lane, widening the street another foot or two, and see if you can add a walking lane in there, something that would minimize the impact. Mill Hartman asked me to bring that issue to you. She's been thinking about that, and she decided that a walking lane or a bicycle lane might make you happy, and I should try to make you happy. That's what she told me. No sidewalks and a minimal street width to allow for parking on one side only would be ideal, workable, and it would preserve the special feel of our little corner of Mount Healthy. We're already different because we have a working farm with multi-facets, as you know. It's a farm, it's a church, it's a training center, it's a food pantry, it's a boarding house, it's a commune. It's a counseling center, it's a craft center, a yoga center, and a job training center now. And many longtime residents who feel safe and who value what is here want to keep what we have and keep the special features of our neighborhood. The argument has been made that in 20 years or so, when we're all dead and gone, the future residents might want sidewalks on our street, and our response to that is they might want streets or sidewalks, but they might not. And if they do, then let them come up here and talk to whoever's sitting here in 20 years and say, we need sidewalks on our street, but I don't know why we need them now. It's befuddling to me why 14 property owners now have to make the concession for sidewalks in what might be an issue in 20 years, but doesn't seem to be an issue now. As far as I know, no traffic study has been done, no tree specialist has been consulted, and there's been no consideration of alternatives like a bicycle walking lane in lieu of sidewalks or the turnaround at the bottom of the street. I've been told by Mr. Coker that there's no immediacy in your making the decision right now, that this is something that could be discussed and considered going forward. One of our longest residents, Sandy Trich Schlotterbeck, who lived on the corner house, the blue house facing Adams Road. She was the one on oxygen. I told you, she just died last week. But on her deathbed, with hospice present, she was talking to her family about the sidewalks and how they were going to try to put, I won't use her exact language, but put a blank sidewalk that will make them have a wall in her yard. And she was telling her family about that 2 days before she died. So that was very important to her. And it is very important to all of us. We treasure our neighborhood, we treasure our unique neighborhood, the unique feel of it, the peace we have, and we don't feel like we need to lose any more green space because of it. But thank you so much for listening to me. I think there's some other residents that might be able to speak to you now too,
Okay.
but that's up to you. But
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Ann.
And if you have any questions, I put my phone number everywhere, so feel free. And you know where I live. You can come and visit.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to address council that might have something different to say?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Dan Staub. I live at 801 Elizabeth Street. I've been a resident for 44 years, and I just came up here to support Ann for all the work she's done, and I think she's been really keeping us informed. As far as the sidewalks, I live back in the private area. The only concern I have with having sidewalks is that it might invite a problem that we had earlier several years ago where the school children would come through Elizabeth Street and then go into the other neighborhood through private property. So the existing neighbor took care of that, and we had no problems thus far, but with sidewalks, it might come back again. So that's my only objection with having sidewalks, and having been there for 44 years, I really didn't consider a need for them because, like Ann described, the type of neighborhood that we have and want to keep it pristine and private. So that's all I have to say, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Staub. Anybody else? There's one behind you yet, sir.
Kim Cremines, 7340 Perry Street. This is just a counterpoint to all of that. I live at the dead end of Perry Street, and 35 years ago when I bought my house, there were sidewalks, but there were no curbs. The city came in and put curbs in, and this is frustrating to hear these residents talk about this because we had to pay for the curbs. And as a young couple, we didn't really have the money to do that. So it's a little frustrating to hear the people complain that they don't want sidewalks and they're getting them. But aside from that, my issue is that I just would think that you would want to think that, sure, things were different 25 years ago when the kids grew up, but and that they grew up without sidewalks. We also grew up without seat belts. So, I mean, that's a big difference. Cars go faster, and sure, somebody might not want the sidewalks now, but say something happens to your family and you have to move. There's new families, young kids moving in all the time. To me, it seems very short-sighted to say, well, we don't need these sidewalks now when you're doing the streets and then you've got the money from the state to do it. It seems very short-sighted to not do it and say, well, let's just wait 20 years when somebody else would want them. So that's just a counterpoint to all that. I would like to address something else, but not about the sidewalk, so I can come up later.
Go ahead, you're here.
This is actually about the police chief and the liquor license. I've spoken to several of the businesses. Jenny and I have talked a lot. I've talked to the mayor. I'm a little, as the Business Association president, I'm a little disheartened on how when businesses have an issue and they come to the Business Association and say, how can we deal with this? And we come to the city or we come to city council, a lot of times the response is, that's just one person complaining. It's not really a lot of people. Or these are problems we've had in the past, there's nothing we can really do about it. I know one of the parking issues is something you're going to talk about, and I really do appreciate you all taking the time to talk to us and deal with that. But I was really disappointed when I had contacted the police chief about all of the businesses getting their, you guys going to oppose their liquor license renewal. To me, it's very frustrating if we're going to say that we support our businesses, but in the chief's letter, or from your minutes, he said that that one of the things is that they don't have to be notified. And Jenny was the one that asked the chief, you know, they've been notified? Well, most of those businesses were blindsided by that. And when I emailed the chief, he said, well, if they're not aware of these issues, then that's poor management. In speaking to not only those three there, but our other beer establishment, the thing is that some of these businesses either they don't get informed, or things that come up is that, say someone's going down Hamilton Avenue and they get a DUI and it's in front of Vince's. That goes against them, even though that patron wasn't, or that person wasn't a patron. Or the same thing down at Fibonacci's. They said that there was somebody that came in that was trying to escape a domestic violence issue. So they called the police. Now, I've not heard that they have any issues, but if something like that happens to one of the bars, and then she said, what am I supposed to do? Turn this person away, say, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to call the police because I don't want this to go against me. So one of the things that we've discussed is maybe having a committee meeting with the streets and safety, maybe a representative from the business association, maybe a representative from council and the business owner. Because personally, just from your all's reaction to what the chief said, to me, it looked like you all didn't even know that anything of this was going on. And it's like, well, if they're bringing this stuff up, and these bar owners are saying, well, why should all these bar checks go against us? Or why should an outside influence, and I saw and hear what the chief's thing said about the guy getting arrested for disorderly conduct, but he said he was at one of our local bars. From what I can understand in talking to some of the bar owners as far as the liquor enforcement, if they see a person that looks intoxicated, they can cut them off. If that person doesn't exhibit intoxication, then they are not technically responsible. So I just would really encourage you to be open to dealing with the bars. I know the police chief said in these that, you know, they don't want to shut down any businesses, but I know that a couple of the bars said that some of their employees have already quit because they're afraid that if they do lose their liquor license, it's not like, okay, you got a month, you're shut down right now. And those people are afraid that they're not going to have their jobs, so they've actually moved on. So I appreciate you working with us on the parking issue. I would really encourage you, if we can, to get together and work on this, because I think it's just a lack of communication on the city, the police, and even the businesses. And like I said, I'm willing to even be a part of this, even though these things are outside of what affect me. So, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim. Yes, sir. Next.
Adam Dunlop, 7832 Perry Street. I just wanted to, I wanted to agree with the thought of putting in sidewalks on Elizabeth Street. I understand it was a poor choice of me to wear this shirt today. I do not represent the farm in any way, shape, or form, so apologies to the farm if they're watching. I mean, most of the neighborhood, most of Mount Healthy is homes that are 10 to 12 feet away from the sidewalk. The sidewalks are great. The sidewalks allow the kids to walk around without being in the street, without possibly getting hurt. And yeah, I mean, 25 years ago, I didn't walk on sidewalks. I walked in the middle of the street. I also rode in the back of my uncle's pickup truck. So it's a different time. And 20 years from now, we might not even have roads. So as of right now, if you got the money and it's coming from the state, I'd recommend it to someone who frequently walks that path, because this is a nice walking neighborhood. I recommend doing it, or at least looking at alternatives to it to make it easier for people to walk. And plus, it's nice having the neighbors nearby. I love sitting on my front porch, drinking a cup of coffee in the morning, waving and talking to the neighbors as they're walking by, walking their dogs, that kind of stuff. So that was it, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I did have another thing. Did you want me to?
Sure.
Okay. With the removal of the lights on Compton, especially this one here at Perry and Compton with the street parking on Compton, it is very difficult to see traffic coming from Hamilton down Compton when you're trying to make a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn, or even go across Compton. It's dangerous. It's kind of scary. I sat there the other day with an officer looking at me on the other side because everyone was really confused. And cars were parked on Compton waiting for us to go across and stuff. So another thing I was wondering if perhaps the white lines that designate where to stop, where the light used to be there on Compton, perhaps removing those so people don't get confused thinking that they still need to stop. So,
That is a good point.
Yeah, those are,
and maybe just backing up a couple of those spots from to back towards Hamilton so that it's more visible around the corner.
The parking you're talking about?
The parking, yes, the on-street parking.
The street marking isn't completed yet, and they're gonna get piano keys in where the rapid fires are, and when they're removing the existing, that can be done. Yeah, I think it's planned to be done.
Also, if you're on, I'm sorry, also if you're on Perry and you're gonna go, that church sign right there, that little church.
Yes.
You have to go
You have to
past
really
that.
go out,
Somebody's
yeah.
trying to cross and walk there, then you're gonna impede their walking because you
Yeah.
can't see on the other side of that sign unless you pull your car up.
Yeah, exactly. And I know you can't move an entire building, but the light that was taken out farther down on Compton, one of the homes there is pretty close to the street, so it's kind of hard to see around it as well. So that was it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I had signed up to talk about that as well.
Well, you're welcome to do that.
Hi, my name is Whitney Vickers, 7805 Perry Street. I parrot a lot of what Mr. Dunlop said. I do feel, however, that the light needs to be put back in. It isn't just one or two cars, it is all of the cars. I drive a minivan, I drive a motorcycle, I drive a small Kia Rio. I can't see, period. I cannot see because of all of the cars that are parked there, no matter what vehicle I'm in. And I do agree with the sign. I was going to mention that you can't see because of where the sign is. And that the removal of those traffic lights has now made that a dangerous intersection, even for pedestrians. I walked to the post office yesterday, nobody stops. There's also the walkway over on Hamilton that has the flashing lights by the dairy bar. Nobody stops. I almost got hit by a Brink security truck while I was walking my dog because he was barreling down Hamilton, which, again, is a 25-mile-an-hour road. Nobody does 25 miles, just like they don't on Compton. Everybody, they turn off of Hamilton and fly down. So it's now a dangerous intersection. I don't feel safe walking, and I don't feel safe driving it. So I've now had to make a detour to avoid going that way. So I would recommend putting the traffic signs back in. I don't know if you had a tech come in and do the traffic assessment, he or she should be fired because that is now a dangerous intersection. You cannot see. So.
Okay. Appreciate your input. Anybody else would like to address council?
Oh, boy, it's gonna be a long meeting. What I should say now.
Hi, again, Karen Arnett, 7373 Hickman. Like the last few people before me, I have two topics. And one is that I would just like to, I wanted to make this announcement early in the meeting in the hopes that people watching on, watching the meeting from their homes, that we might be able to find somebody else who'd be interested in the tree commission. We have one more spot open, and there is we're lucky that Cincinnati's going to be the location for the Tree Commission Academy, the freshman class, the first portion of this wonderful 40-hour-long intensive program that is spaced over a period of 2 years. It moves all around Ohio, but this year it's in Cincinnati, being held at the Civic Garden Center in September. We have one new prospective Tree Commission member who has already signed up for that, and I'd just like to put it out there that if you know of anyone who really cares about seeing our neighborhood be more green with trees, that they contact me. And just quickly, the syllabus for this freshman class, it's over a period of 2 days. Introduction to Tree Commission Academy ordinances, tree biology, urban forestry introduction, marketing urban forestry, and that's just the beginning. And the next 3 segments go into a lot of depth in a number of other topics it's a very comprehensive course that helps prepare people to be good tree commissioners. So That's September of this year. And I understand that there's a relatively few number of seats, so they'll fill up fairly quickly. And I actually took this course probably 8 years ago, and I'm going to sit in and just take a refresher. So, and then my second topic was I just wanted to put in a little more input on the Elizabeth Street. I know it's been talked about a lot today, and you have a long meeting, but I do feel obligated as a member of the Tree Commission to just bring up a couple of points, and those are that in a really significant part of the quality of life of North Elizabeth and the marketability to new families who presumably will be moving there are these mature red oak trees, many of them. It's a really high number of trees, proportion of trees compared with a lot of other parts of our city. They are in their prime, they're 50 to 75 years old, they can live to 150 years. So I feel because these mature shade trees can constitute up to 10% of the value of a residential property, that more effort should be taken to consult with some certified arborist. And I understand that there's a little bit of misunderstanding, thinking that maybe arborists are a subjective bunch and they'll give you differing opinions depending on who you speak to. But certified arborists go through rigorous training. And there's some of the major tree companies like Davey Tree actually run research labs. There's a lot of research being done. It's an objective, there's a lot of objective scientific understanding about trees. And for one example, red oak trees are more sensitive to their roots being damaged than white oaks, for example. The trees on Elizabeth Street are red oak trees. I can give you just a really quick example of how there is objective factual understanding. When Mary Lehman was thinking about maybe moving those trees that line that are along the street that bloom beautifully in the spring, I asked our mentor in the Urban Forestry Department of ODNR, for her advice. Would this be a good idea for Mary to Coon Farm to pay for moving these trees? And she said, well, I thought they were crab apples initially, so she said, yeah, they're probably, in their prime right now, and if she wants to spend that much money, it would probably be a successful transfer. Then I learned that they're actually plum trees, flowering plums, and so I wrote her back and I asked. She immediately said without any hesitation, plums are susceptible to some kind of blight, and so do not do it. Don't even bother. This is the kind of thing, if you can consult with a certified arborist, there are not only issues about how much the trees will be impacted and even making a decision as to which side of the road the sidewalk should be on could be informed by talking to somebody who really has knowledge and credentials. And then there's another issue which often cities will build into the specs that go out for bid, but we're past that point now. But trees really depend on oxygen in the soil. That's a key critical factor for their continued health. You all know that construction crews are notorious for liking to park their pickup trucks under trees to keep them in the shade. There might be certain things that that the city could impose as requirements on the construction crews. For example, where they park. And if they have to cut roots, it's generally considered best practice to cut roots with a clean cut, like using some kind of a saw blade rather than just tearing them with earth-moving equipment. So there's a number of things that might be considerations to add into how you work with the contractors to minimize the damage to the trees later, in addition to the possibility of maybe making decisions that would be helpful to preserve those trees. So that's all that I wanted to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, Karen, thank you very much. Anybody else who'd like to address council? Okay, then we're going to move on to our committee reports. Jenny Moody, Business Partnership and Alliance.
Okay, I think Kim covered pretty well the conversations we had at the business meeting concerning some of the businesses of the bars. Also, they talked about the parking, which you'll be seeing tonight, and how the businesses are looking forward to some resolution on that and some guidance for the way people are going to be parking and utilizing the business district. The school district was there, and they talked a little bit about a new website and a new app. I'm speaking about this because Cordell's not here, and he usually does schools, and they did talk about the Early Childhood Center opening up October the 1st. They're doing a lot of different food ventures this summer. Some of them are family grill outs, and then others are through the food service, the summer programs that they usually have, but they've got some new ones too. The Alliance, the pantry, is still serving and distributing food. The camp, the Youth Alliance, is going to have a 5-week camp. And I wanted to bring this up now for Mayor Wolf and Ms. Sheets. They were asking if there was any funding still available through the grant that we had. They want to take the kids swimming there. And I looked into it, and it's $2 a student. They're going to have up to 18 students enrolled, not knowing if they're going to have that many students, and some adults. And they would like to be able to walk the kids across and take them swimming. I asked them how much, and they said every day. I don't know if that's possible with, I went up there last week on the first couple days, and I felt kind of bad for the new manager there. They had a lot of daycare kids. In fact, the next day I took them a Coney crate from Gold Star because I didn't want them to quit and because there were only 3 lifeguards there. And then there was another person from the company that was there overseeing everything. I think it's all going to work out fine, but anyway. So, you know, the Alliance is part of taking care of our youth and keeping them safe, and it's part of the Alliance is a group of churches in this community that have been working for years. So could you bring that up at the We Thrive meeting if there's a possibility to kind of fund that?
How many weeks is it?
5 weeks. I kind of, when I looked at what the top price would be, we're talking around $1,000.
Yeah.
It could be less than that. It depends. You know, they say they're going to have up to 18 kids. That's their slots, not knowing if they're going to have that many or not. And again, you know, some kids might come one day, they might not come the next. I'm not sure. Families do have to pay for this service. There is a fee, so this is not going to be free. However, a lot of that goes toward the supplies and things that they're going to do for the kids. So I just wanted to bring that up, if you could let us know that.
Is that entrance to the pool, the cost, is that what you're talking about?
Well, there's usually a group fee, correct, Bill? I talked to Bill about it
Yeah,
a
the
little
only
bit.
thing I was going to add to that,
Go
if I
ahead.
just may, is that,
Sure.
you know, and I think it's great, and hopefully we can come up with something, but, I mean, we kind of only allow the other daycares to come twice a week because it can become overwhelming. right?
Absolutely.
So I think just we need to be consistent.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
so if it's 2 days, then that's great, even though, you know, 18 doesn't sound like a lot, but if you've already done 30 and you don't know they're coming.
When I was there, one daycare had 70 kids.
Yeah, I know.
And then
Well,
there was
we're
another
addressing
daycare,
that,
huh?
too. We're addressing that.
Whoa, and they were very overwhelmed.
Yeah. So that would be my only comment, if you can get the funding. Yeah, it's $2 per kid. That's what all the daycares are paying. They usually come in twice a week, and they're there for like a couple hours.
Yeah, okay.
I'm positive we can get the funding for
I'm
2
thinking-
days a week.
I think we can. Yeah, that's what I was hoping, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
bring it up. Okay.
Should I talk to Shannon?
Yes, talk to Shannon. Shannon's the one that's been emailing me.
Pryor Jones?
All right, and that's it. You want me to move on to beautification?
Sure.
Okay, well, so we've got the plants planted, and unfortunately, we had one pot overturned, and so I had some extra plants, so we've put that back in order. We don't have as many pots. We don't have the 4 corners done this year. I really felt like I was hoping we could get bigger pots. Plus, there might be some construction that might impede that. Greg said at some point. So we have a pot down by Angelo's, we have a pot at CVS, and I know Bob has just said tonight he would help water. We need some help with watering. I do Heritage Park, except when I'm out of town. And I will say at Heritage Park, today when I went, there was probably 18 beer bottles and cans in those big pots. I've never seen it like that before. So I'll be on the lookout. I've been on the lookout before. I'll be on the lookout now. Anyway, so, but other than that, we have some businesses that wanted them and that are going to take care of them, and so that's all good. That's it.
Thank you, Jenny. Finance, Mr. Parsons?
No report.
Okay. Parks, Ms. Lingo?
I don't really have a report. I just want to remind everybody the first free concert is this Friday in the park. And that July 3rd fireworks starts at 6, I believe. And that's also in the park too. But
Music starts at 6.
The music starts at 6. Yeah, the fireworks don't start at 6. You wouldn't be able to see them. And you can go to the website to get the full schedule of the things that are going on in the park. But Jamie, I failed to look at the movies when that started.
Those will be the last Saturday, let me look, in July, and then every Saturday in August.
Okay.
We pushed it back a little bit. It's much easier to do them at the end of summer because it gets darker earlier. When we tried to do them in June, it was 11 o'clock at night before it got dark enough. It was awful.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Denise.
On the Friday night concerts are 7:30 to 9:30. And I wanted to mention that the June 25th band had to cancel, but it's going to be replaced by Like Minds, Ray Rissel's band, so they'll be there on the 25th of June.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can insert something, because I would do it in new business, but I know you talked about the July 3rd celebration. I think Kim would like volunteers to help.
I think I have enough volunteers.
Whoa.
I was going to ask you that after.
Really?
Wow.
Wonderful.
I won't turn down any volunteers.
Okay, well, we can be your backup.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, because I know you said something the other day I wanted to, okay, great, that's it.
Okay, streets and safety, Mr. Redding.
No report. No, I'm just kidding.
Schools, Mr. George?
No, I was just kidding.
I
couldn't help that.
We're off, we're moving on.
You had your
No,
chance.
we had a Streets and Safety Committee meeting on May 25th. The majority of the conversation concerned the parking schedule ordinance. Greg Cutter was there to and worked with us on that. So we did have some additional changes, but those are in your latest documents here that were in your council packet. Also, Bill, from last council meeting, Bill does need to know about what are we doing and what's council's decision on North Elizabeth Street. Sidewalks, no sidewalk, one sidewalk, east side, west side, or alternative E. None of the above, or whatever we decide. So just keep that in mind. And then finally, not
Mr. Redding,
finally.
I'm hoping that we can do that under old business tonight.
Yes,
Okay,
yep.
great,
Yep.
perfect.
And, yeah, we can talk about, like I said, the ordinance on the street schedule when the ordinance comes up.
Yeah, perfect,
Yeah.
yep.
Yep, because that's a second reading. And then construction has started on Hamilton Avenue on the signs, on the lighting. They were working on all the electrical stuff and the curbs.
Oh, the crosswalks, yes.
Yes, the crosswalk
Not
signs,
Yeah,
yes.
not the street,
Sorry.
but the
Yeah,
crosswalks.
not the actual street, yeah.
They cut all the loops.
But yeah, you will see some, some cones out there, so
Right.
be careful of that. I believe the laydown area for all that stuff is over in the parking lot on Harrison. So a lot of the intersections have been, a lot of the sidewalks have been striped with where they're going to do work, but they've actually started digging up on Madison and Hamilton late last week.
Yeah, the majority of the work of the project's going on in Compton with the sidewalks, if you've not been down that way. Yeah, that's,
Yes,
yeah.
but there's a lot going on Hamilton too, I do believe.
Several
There's a lot of marking and a lot of saw cuts that have already been made. Let's see. And then, Bill, I'm sure you're going to cover this, but the Adams Road, Elizabeth Hickman Street project, who was awarded that?
Rack and Bowler.
Okay. And do we have a start date?
You want me to go over my report? You said.
Go
you're
over it
sure
in your
you were gonna-
report.
we're gonna-
Go
you
over
wanna
it in your
ask me the
report.
question? What do you wanna
Okay. Okay. Inquiring minds want to know. So that is all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Redding. Questions for Mr. Redding?
But a comment, I really appreciate all the work that was put into that. I mean, Sunday I went and walked it all, so I figured, because I'm drawing it on a map and it's like, oh, I'm lost. So I went and walked it and, I understood it. And I appreciate you going through all row by row and cleaning it up. Thank you.
Not a problem.
and your
Bob
committee.
and Denise also was involved in that, just not
Thank you,
myself.
thank you, thank
I
you.
would not want to do this myself, so.
Be impossible.
Okay, Mr. George is not here tonight for the school, so we'll move to the library. Ms. Dosa?
Just a reminder that the library is offering programs in the park. At last I heard that has not changed, and the next one is the 21st. So just check with the library prior to going to make sure they haven't changed the time or relocated due to weather or whatever, but they're still going to continue to do this, is what she told me. And that's it.
Thank you. Urban Tree, Ms. Lingo.
Yeah, this is the 10th year anniversary for the Urban Tree Commission. Just wanted to point that out. And in July, Karen's going to do an overview what had gone on within the 10 years, and then I believe she's going to come quarterly and just educate us on trees, just so that residents can hear it, and also, us to help figure out what we do with the trees. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. We Thrive, Ms. Sheets?
We had our meeting May 25th, and Tecan Farm has talked about that they have fewer volunteers, but they also have fewer needs, and they have decreased to 3 days a week instead of the 4. The farmers market for Fibonacci's updates were that farmers market had gone well. She's also looked into bulk books. So if anybody has a need for bulk books for children or things like that, you can, at the Friends of the Library, you can get, for $20, you can get a whole box of books. You don't get to select them. They all select them and put them in there. But if you need them for like a free library or you have kids. So that's going on. They have chosen a navigator, and that's Jody. She's had been with the AmeriGroup, and she was the one that was here before. Is that my understanding?
Yes, she was the AmeriCorps service member at Tecan Farm.
Okay.
Previously.
So I believe she's starting in July,
I believe so.
end of June, beginning of July. There was a new person there, Kristen Woods, and she's the Girl Scout person for Mount Healthy and North College Hill. Really interesting person. She was at Fibonacci and talked, so she's got some great ideas working with the girls. They had the plant swap, which was really more of the Renaissance Committee, and that was June 5th at the Fibonacci's. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Sheets? Okay, we're going to move on to the mayor's report. Mr. Wolf.
Yeah, I just have 3 things. I mentioned that we were going to honor Little Dutch at the 3rd of July, and I got with Ray to figure out the best time to do that, and with Mary. So we're going to do it during the first band break, which is typically 45 minutes into the first set. So we're thinking about 6:45 to 7, or 6:45 or 7, somewhere within that time. As soon as the band takes our first break, we are going to honor them for their 100th anniversary. We do have two resolutions from the State House and the key to the city. So
That's nice.
if you want to spread the word for people to be up there at that time, I'll share it as well. I know they're sharing it with lots of friends and family. So we'll be 6:45 or 7 right during that first band break. And then at Fibonacci as well, they keep coming up because they host so much. They are going to have vaccine clinics at Fibonacci. The county reached out to me and asked about businesses that would be willing to host, and I reached out to Betty, Kim, for the Business Association, as well as Teakin Farm. I know Teakin Farm already had one of theirs, and Fibonacci is doing one this Thursday, and then again Thursday, July 8th. There are free vaccines. They have both Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. So Pfizer is the 2-dose one. You can get the first dose that day, and that's for 12 and up. So you can take children up there as long as they're 12 years old. They do have to have a parent or guardian with them. And then the Johnson & Johnson's only 18 and up, and it's only a single shot, single dose. So they will have those at Fibonacci on it's from 5 to 7 p.m. this Thursday, and then again Thursday, July 8th. And then the last thing I brought up a couple times, just interest to start looking into it, and maybe Bill's going to cover this, but I'll go ahead. I asked Bill to start kind of looking into the idea of red light, stoplight, speed cameras, about the possibility of it. I know Ohio Supreme Court ruled that you are allowed to have them. Well, issue now is that legislature, figuring out they can't ban them, has said that, okay, you can have them, but the amount of money you make from it will be taken out of your state allocation of funds. And Bill and I discussed, but you know what, if it's a wash, we're not looking to make a profit. We want to keep people safe. So let's look into it. So he emailed or texted Scott Solman, our law director, and right now it looks like it's still tied up in litigation, even that, because it requires that the tickets go to municipal court, not to mayor's court. So it would have to go downtown instead of to our own court. And the city would have to front the court costs for that. So this is being litigated now. And then there's another aspect of this new law that says that, well, I already said the money deducted from the state. So those things are tied up in litigation right now. So I did reach out to the Ohio Municipal League as well, just to see what other cities are doing and, you know, what their expectations were. So I haven't heard back from them yet, but just know that Bill and Scott and I have all kind of started looking into this, and once the courts settle this, you know, let the bigger cities test it, then we can figure out where to go. It's a little frustrating. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions? Okay, move on to the city manager's report. Mr. Bill Coker.
Thanks. We'll start off with some good news. The city was in your packet. The city received a grant from community development to help make the city a smart city. But what we had done, and Amir had talked about this earlier, the school had already done a lot of the legwork on this and was working with Cincinnati Bell because they learned a lot during the pandemic about trying to get access to the kids. And they're spending a lot of money on hot spots and different things, and they're getting lost. And so they really dug in and was looking to get this thing jump-started. Well, as they were working their way through this, it came out that cities could apply for funding up to $150,000. So we applied for $150,000 and we got it. And so what the focus is going to be on the downtown corridor with businesses, and they'll work with the businesses in our park. And then obviously with school it goes outside of the district or outside of the city some, but the main apartments, Clover Nook Apartments, Compton Lakes Apartments, let's see, Lake of the Woods Apartments, President Square Apartments, all those are target areas. It's going to take upwards to, we were definitely the most aggressive of the communities that got it, over 140 access points just to start, and that's only going to cover those areas. Our grant will cover, you know, it will just kind of be, so basically the amount that they were looking at was nearly $560,000 to get this going. So basically the grant's going to lower that by $150,000. They're pleased. We're working with Cincinnati Bell to get this started. We're probably going to just use our money to buy the access points. Some of the stuff wasn't covered in it, but the access points are. So we'll buy as many as we can and then just kind of get that program started. So that's really cool.
Question about that.
Sure.
Who does the work? Cincinnati Bell?
Yeah.
And the 500 and something thousand, is that per year, or is that?
No, not at all.
Time?
Yeah, just to give you an idea, well, there's two things that are going to go on. Nothing's free, right? I mean, so Cincinnati Bell will work with businesses, so if somebody's up at the restaurant, when they hey, there's free Wi-Fi, yeah, you go on it, there'll be an advertisement or something. They're going to try to solicit some funds through that way. But there is an upfront cost. Currently, the school has it budgeted in and plans on paying it at least for the next 3 years, is what I've been told. And that's $14,500 a month. That's what the cost will be going forward for the school. If you want to just say, well, what if we take that on someday? What if the cost for the park is $300, and the businesses downtown are, let me see, sorry, $700. So
Per month? Per month?
Per month. $1,000 per month to cover those areas.
That wouldn't take care of the apartments?
No.
Just a business district and park?
Right. So the school's full intent right now is to pay for that because they feel like they're paying it anyway, because of their needs for students. And I'm sure as things change, I mean, we've learned a lot from the pandemic. So, but if that happens, we could cross that bridge, down the road. If they say, hey, we can't pay this $1,000, we could look at alternatives to try to do that. So hopefully, maybe some of the businesses will help to be able to reduce that as well.
And we don't have a schedule for that yet?
And they want it done by the end of the year.
Okay.
I mean, we're trying to get a meeting and responding to they're trying to get a meeting set up with Cincinnati Bell to figure out. Now, one thing we'll notice, and you'll notice this on the finance, because it's a grant through the city, it's a reimbursable grant. So we'll buy the 150, but we'll be able to, and we'll put it in reimbursables and then turn around and get that money right back from the county.
Can I just add? So right now, one of the problems this will fix, and one of the reasons the district's willing to spend that money, is right now they're putting hotspots in individual apartments for families that need them. So you can imagine with, Clover Nook Apartments where there's 450 units, I don't know how many of those have students in there that have applied for those, but you can imagine how much of a hassle it is getting those hotspots into individual apartments, then getting them out when those apartments turn over, et cetera. So making the whole place smart is actually more efficient, and it's already built into their budget. So it's really just replacing it with a more efficient model.
Any more questions? Okay. Yes, go ahead.
All fiber optics, right?
Yes, it has to be. It's got to
That's
be
the
fiber
latest
where
agreement.
they're,
Okay.
yeah.
That actually saved money as well, because part of this project, the Unicity, is if you don't have fiber, then either the school district or municipality has to pay to get the fiber put in, and our whole district has fiber, so that's great.
And then any future upgrades, did they talk about that? Because 5 years from now, there'll be something better,
Don't
faster.
know that.
I imagine they're going to charge us for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, hopefully not. Hopefully, but yeah, there's, I'm sure there'll be, hot spots that go down and different things like that, they refer to them as the access point hardware. So there's got to be access point hardware everywhere.
Right, but that $1,000 a month kind of covers that, doesn't it? Or is that addition to the?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll touch on some of the points with that Joe brought up with the street construction. And I'll save some of my other comments for the old business when we talk about the sidewalk decisions. But yes, RAC and Baller, it's B-A-L-L-A-U-E-R. Typically, they were just referred to as RAC, and that's a lot of times where when we talk, we haven't had them in a. Actually, Scott came in today and remembered me from my first year here 17 years ago with a project they were working on. I didn't recall. So they have done some work, but JMA had done work with them just recently in Norwood, had a really good project. So far, everything's been great. The bid came in at $1.9 million, which $1.424 that is roadway, and $490,000 of that is waterworks. Just amazing the prices that go, and timing's key, right, to everything in life. The petroleum costs drive the blacktop costs, and so obviously that's not helping us this time of year. Those kinds of things. They're aware that we have decisions and they're waiting, but we do need to get that information especially with the sidewalks to them. The problem with everything in today's world right now, right? I mean, as soon as they were awarded, as soon as our engineer affirmed that they were the lowest and best bidder, met all the requirements, we signed the contract because water pipe 6 weeks out. So, everything is like that right now. So there'll be some things that get started, there'll be some staging, but that's the first part of the project. So that's looking at August. I'm telling you now, this project's going to play out like a lot of them do, and I think it's okay, where we'll get a lot of the concrete work done, we'll get a lot of the base work done, we'll get a initial coat down, blacktop, and then we'll button down for the winter. But that's a good thing, even though I know sometimes it's annoying to have the caps around the storm sewers and things like that, because it gives time for the project to settle. If it settles, we can go in, we can dig it out, we can prepare it before the project gets the final coat and the punch list is done, which will be in the spring of next year. So that's just kind of a high-level view of it right now.
Awesome.
Yep. So two other things. Mr. Parsons mentioned it earlier. There is an updated fee schedule. Bill Knight's been on me for a couple years on this. And I just thought it would be good to get through the zoning updates and then look at this. Gordon put it together. I don't know if there's a specific committee or if we can just get maybe 3 members of council or 2 members of council that can sit down with Gordon and just ask these questions, because if you read it, I mean, it's unique in how they apply a lot of this stuff, so that we just don't throw a fee schedule at you and ask you to take a first reading, and get the new zoning ordinance in place first. And if we follow up a month or so after that, I don't think it would work. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on how you want to handle it. Maybe it can go to an existing committee. We don't have to do that. We just, if we do 3 council members, we just got to notify and do that, and work with Gordon. It would probably be early evening. I think he can be here at 5 o'clock or so. Or we could go later if need be. So, is anybody interested? Because I don't know really where this would fall. We don't. I mean,
Which committee?
yeah. We really don't have building and zoning.
Gonna have to be an ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
I think it should fall under finance since it's fees.
I'd like to take a look at what he's got here before I decide.
I told him, I said, look, they're gonna get it presented tonight. I'm sure they'll have questions. They can get with me. We can set up a meeting. We don't have to we don't have to get this in front of council by the July meeting. I mean, if you want to meet in July and discuss it, we can get it in August, take 2 readings on it. Take our time, but I just wanted to get it going. You see, there's quite a bit to it, so.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit to it.
Do we want to?
I mean,
My
wouldn't
only
mind.
concern is if we don't try to get something figured out tonight, we'll be talking about it again in July. Is there an ad hoc committee that's interested in this?
I'd be willing to try.
Okay. Cindy?
I would
Denise?
do it.
You need one
I'll
more?
go.
Yeah?
Am I allowed?
I don't know.
But I would appreciate you being on it.
Yeah, I think you'd be a
Because you
good
have a lot
choice.
of
Yeah,
input.
because
Well,
you've
they
got
take
some
too goddamn
background with
much of my
this.
money. I want to cut them down.
Well, honestly, yes, you can be on it. You're not a voting member, but that's fine. If you could technically have another member and you could go there and just provide input, because you're not going to vote. You're just, you're providing your knowledge.
Yeah.
So,
We would like your knowledge.
Well, you.
or do we want to just go with
well,
Denise,
You all think I have knowledge. That's
Cindy,
funny.
and Ross? Because that can work too.
That way you don't have 3 council members.
Right,
All right.
right.
All right. I'll get with Gordon and see when we can get a time. I know. What's the earliest you can start? Probably.
I could be home by 5, depending
Okay.
on traffic.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Would that work for you?
Yeah, I'm retired.
They're good. Perfect. All right.
She didn't
And
ask
Ross,
me.
They didn't ask Ron.
can you be here at 5?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. All right. I'll try to get it coordinated with everybody. And then just the last thing is, as of June 29th, we will have our 7th full-time firefighter on staff and in the rotation. So the last person did work out, thanks to Keisha that was on that committee. I had talked to Cindy, but Steve was already on it. We're hoping, or what we want to do is on the meeting in August, is to have all 7 members come up, because, I mean, obviously, council did a great job of getting this together and getting it passed, and the residents are paying, a lot of money for this, so we can see the folks, we can meet them.
Yeah.
Maybe even do it a little earlier, maybe do from like 6 to 7, just kind of a,
Meet and
mini
greet.
open house, meet and greet, and then there's not a form, I think Steve kind of liked what the police does, this is the first time we've hired 7, there's not a formal, even tonight, and I think most people realize that, tonight is more of a ceremonial bit, but it's great for the families to come, right, it was great to see the pictures, I think Steve would like to have something like that
I think
done.
that'd be great.
So,
Yeah, that'd be
so we'll just plan on doing it on the meeting in August.
Paul in the committee too?
What's that?
Wasn't Paul in the committee too?
Yeah.
Hiring?
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Just
didn't, I have my
wanted to
back to you.
recognize him
Oh,
as well.
thanks, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't even see you back there, actually.
He's hiding.
All right. And that's it. Like I said, when we get to old business and some of the ordinances, I have some more discussion.
That covers everything, sir?
Yes, sir.
Questions? Okay, we're going to move on to Finance Director, Mr. Bauer. And I'd like to do Mr. Bauer tonight. Monthly reports in your packet if you have any questions.
He called me today and said
Nailed
that,
it.
Ross.
Okay. Ordinances and resolutions. We have a second reading on an ordinance. Ordinance number 21-1951. An ordinance amending Chapter 77, Schedule 1, Traffic and Parking of the Mount Healthy Code of Ordinances. Got them all numbered there, Joe.
We did multiple times, Ross. I'm sorry, I'm looking for my updated one, which I just had. I've only got about 6 versions of it, so.
I'll just take a quick second, Joe, just, because I know our
Actually,
street
looks like my
department
writing.
and also tried to assist with this. And the more we dug into this and peeled this onion back, the more we realized a lot of this stuff we needed to scrap it and start over. There was still stuff on the books about South Martin Street that no longer exists, about hotels and motels and different things. So, we think we've got a lot of it cleaned up. Some of what we're going to do tonight may have a ripple effect, and we can address it then. I think we've discussed that as well, but I think we've done a good job of trying to hit all the points, so.
Yep. So please take a look at it. The form that you're seeing, I think, starts with Adams Road, number 1, and then number 7, Elizabeth Street. Okay, that's because everything 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 was deleted. So you'll have to refer back
Five's
to
at the
your
bottom.
old.
5's at the bottom.
Oh, that's right, 5 is at the bottom, I did forget that. That Martin Street in Compton. There's one bush there. I looked at that again this weekend, Bill. That thing is sitting right on the corner.
No 1-foot setback for foliage?
No, I don't think it is.
What intersections is?
Martin and Compton, we'll definitely get to it. So everything highlighted in yellow is a change.
I don't have that copy.
This was put in your packet.
Yeah. We had it.
Starts with 1, then the next one down is 7.
Sorry, oh, there it is.
The old one. Be the new one. Yep. The revised one. So if you look at the 2, you'll see where a lot of them they weren't necessary to be kept. They're being deleted. Some of them are going to be covered by the Hamilton Avenue ones, the new parking restrictions on Hamilton Avenue. So take a look at it real quick. Everything highlighted in yellow. On the new suggested changes was the one item put in your pack. That's the most updated one. So I don't know, did you want me to go through each one that was changed, or
We've all had
Do you have
time
any
to read it.
questions?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I looked through
No,
it.
Joe.
It's everything we discussed.
I mean, the only question I have is, or thought, is what's number 32, it had been 37, I guess, between East Compton line, and then Clovernook is crossed out, and Affinity Place. I wondered about naming a location by the business, because if the business would change, would we have to change our ordinance?
Yeah. That's why we, a lot of times we get so specific, we put in feet, like from the corner to
I saw that in other,
422 feet or whatever, yeah, so businesses we wouldn't want to do, yeah.
right? But
so, that's a third row up from the bottom.
Affinity Place is
Yeah,
a street.
Affinity Place is a street
Oh, I
name.
thought that was the name of the dialysis place.
Oh, no, no,
No,
no,
no.
Affinity Street is
No,
the
it's a
street that the Dallas is on.
Okay, missed that, thank you.
Yeah, and the reason for that change too is that's actually 3 lanes there at Clovernook, so, because you have the lane turning left and a lane going
Okay.
straight, and so that's why we pushed it a little bit further west.
All right, well, I can have a day, I learned something. Thank you.
So in a nutshell, this is a cleanup of what we had, plus the 1-hour parking on Hamilton and
Yes.
Compton, Monday through Saturday from 7 to 5, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
I do
Yep.
have one other question. This is in compliance to our new zoning?
Yes, the parking that they were talking about, there are parking requirements for businesses when they come in. A lot of times,
Okay.
businesses look and come in and say, you gotta have so many spaces. So,
Okay.
Yep, no, completely.
Yeah, and Bill, the only other thing that I wanted to bring up was Kenny Avenue, number 22. Because it says time limit over in the right-hand column, right? It says time limit Friday from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's actually when you're not allowed to park there, because that's strictly for, so Rumpke can get in and get out. And they need that to swing their truck. So I don't know if we need to, because we also have signs there stating that. Is that something we can delete from this? I know it's very much a one-off, but
We have the signs there because it's in the ordinance,
yes.
so we can't delete it.
Yeah,
We want it there,
No.
right.
we want it
No,
there.
we want this, okay, this is a discussion Bill and I had. There's a sign up almost at every intersection, no parking from here to corner. Those aren't in here.
No.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
So, but anyway, the rest of these is a time limit, 1 hour. This one is, you can't park there. So I'm wondering that maybe we just change the verbiage on that one.
No, the reason behind that is because, again, we don't want to just keep it, that's when Rumpke's going to be there. So allow people to park there any other time, because we don't want, because people do
No.
park in that area.
I agree, but the rest of them, the rest of them, if you look at one, it says never, right?
Right.
Okay. If you go down, the parking on Hamilton Avenue is 1 hour, okay?
Right.
So that's when you can park there. So most of them are when you can park there, right? Or all of them say when you can park at the place. This kind of reads like, hey, you can only park there Friday, 6 a.m. to 2
But
p.m.
only on the sign, yeah. That, I don't,
Well, you're talking positive and negatives, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
is what
right.
you are.
That's what,
So,
yeah. Because
I
it
think-
looks like, when you read it, that you can park there on Fridays from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m.
It should just say no parking.
No parking
Friday
on
from.
Friday. Basically, isn't that what you're saying, Joe?
That's what I'm trying to, yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
No parking. This should read, no parking Friday from 6 a.m. to
Right.
2 p.m.
Right,
Yes.
because the other ones are showing when
that's
you
what the
can-
sign says.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, we're
All
just
right,
saying
good.
the
All right,
ordinance.
That's where I was confused, okay.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the only amendment I would make.
I make a motion to approve ordinance number 21-19 1951.
Second it.
As amended?
As
or-
amended, yeah.
As amended,
As
yep.
amended. Okay, we have an ordinance, what am I doing?
Adopting.
Yeah. we have a-
Adoption, I'm sorry.
We have an ordinance that is being adopted by Jenny Moody, made a motion, and seconded by, was that you, Cindy?
Yes.
Cindy Sheets? It was seconded. All those,
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
yeah.
Mrs.
my-
Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George? Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0,
Can-
ordinance 21-1951 is adopted. I can't even speak.
Can I ask something,
Yes.
President? I was going to have I wanted a little discussion, but that's okay. So how is this going to roll out? What's the plan now? Wow. All right, there it is.
Oh,
Now, were we,
tell her they asked that, Bill?
got
This
it,
is
got
a
it.
lot for Bob because he hates how slow government uses, right? Because you expected for me to say,
I can
oh,
read-
now we got to order the signs, and they're going to take 6 weeks to get in and everything. So no.
All right, and then, were we going to do a letter to send to the businesses or not? I don't know, we can discuss that later.
This was not an emergency, so it doesn't take effect for 30 days, right?
Oh, geez, 30 days, 30 more days. Ah. Okay.
But there will be something on our website that these changes are coming.
Absolutely do that.
Last time I went to the bakery, parking was better. Last time I went to the bakery.
We ready to move on?
I am.
Okay.
Yep.
We have no more,
You know, one other
President-
thing we could do, just that I'm thinking, we could put the signs up and not enforce it,
Yeah.
but that would get,
was actually
that
just
would get
thinking that.
people.
I think that would be, I think that would be great, because we do
Yeah.
need to have people, yeah.
It's not legal. It's not, that's not the law.
No, it's not. We're not enforcing the law. We're
Okay,
putting signs
okay.
up.
you have no law to enforce, so.
Once it's effective.
Put in real small print, effective July 14th.
No, because they're already made.
Bring my label, man.
Yeah.
Okay, got a first reading of an ordinance, ordinance number 21-1952. An ordinance assessing cost of the removal of high grass and weeds and declaring an emergency. Okay, I'm not on there.
That's what I always look
I
at.
thought that was your
Make a
address.
motion.
A lot of Elizabeth Streets, but
Mr.
not
President,
mine.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 21-1952.
We got to suspend the two reading rule first.
Oh, I thought you said second reading. I was wondering why I didn't have a date on it. Make a motion to suspend the two reading
All
rule.
right.
I'll second that.
Okay, Ms. Lingo's made a motion to suspend the two reading rule, seconded by Mr. Redding.
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George? Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, ordinance number 21-1952 has had the first reading. What is your wish, council?
I make a motion to adopt.
Jinx, Yomiko.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead, Keisha.
Mr. Parsons, seconded by Ms. Dosa.
Okay, good.
Roll call.
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George? Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, ordinance 21-1952 is adopted. Next, I got a first reading of a resolution.
No, we've got,
No, we got
we have
another.
another ordinance.
Three.
Where did I miss that
Collective
at?
bargaining.
There it is. Okay. Ordinance number 21-1953. An ordinance to replace the existing collective bargaining agreement between the City of Mount Healthy and the Mount Healthy Part-Time Firefighters, the AFS-CME, Ohio, Council 8, AFL-CIO, with an updated agreement. Okay.
Just quickly, what we discussed this the last time. The only change in this whole thing is the is the chart.
Wage chart.
Wage chart, and it's not what goes from left to right, that remains the same. It's from each step that they would get as if they were to get promoted for becoming an EMT or paramedic or not pump operator or something. It was in there at 3%. The discussion during the contract was 4%. They submitted it to me wrong in good faith. I said we'd take it back to council and get it corrected. So, and if we could pass that tonight, because poor Melanie's going to have to go back on some of this and go retro maybe a little bit on a few. So the longer we wait, it's just more work.
It says it in section 2
Well, the law
here.
director, the law director's put it in.
Yeah, he put it in section 2.
I got you. As requested by Mr. Parsons.
I make a motion to suspend the 2 reading rule.
Mr. Parsons has made a motion to suspend.
I second.
Mr. Redding is seconded.
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George? Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
By a vote of 6-0, the 2 reading rule has been suspended. What's your pleasure, council?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 21-1953.
Mr. Redding has made a motion to adopt. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Ms. Sheets, seconded.
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George? Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, ordinance 21-1953 is adopted. Now we can finally get to the resolutions. Resolution number 21-1165. A resolution to approve the recommendations of the Planning Commission relating to the zoning ordinances for the City of Mount Healthy zoning districts for assorted zoning code amendments, additions, modifications, and deletions. Covers everything, doesn't it?
So all we're asking for tonight is the first reading,
Yep.
like we said. John's still here working on it. I'm assuming we'll have an updated with the comments that we presented tonight. So we'll get that updated, get it posted, and then we can wrap it up in July. There you go. John's already done it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first reading's fine.
First reading, council, everybody agree?
Yep.
All right. And we have one more resolution. Resolution number 21-1166. A resolution declaring it necessary for the levying
Oh, yes.
tax exceeding a 10 mil limitation and requesting the county auditor to certify matters in connection therewith and declaring an emergency.
This is one that we passed 5 years ago. We passed it as a permanent levy, and the voters voted it as a permanent levy. The Board of Education, or the Board of Elections in Hamilton County sent it up to the state, and the state came back and says you can't do a permanent levy on a general operating levy. So here we are. So it's a 2-step process. So we have to do, if you would, please waive it tonight, because then we'll get it certified through the county, and then they'll send an attachment for us to pass it in July, and then we'll have to submit it to them in August. I talked to Ms. Sheets about this today. Typically renewals, this is one where it's no increase. We typically get these good support from our residents on that. We will have to do some kind of informational, what we typically do. I don't, we aren't going to create a pack or anything. We'll just send out information to the residents, and then you direct any questions to us. So if you would, please waive the free
Suspend?
reading. Yes. But if you have any other questions.
Okay, yeah, questions or comments?
And this is the only one that was kicked back.
Yes, everything else is.
So everything else has been passed as permanent.
Mhm.
They've all been passed as permanent.
Right.
What's your wish, council?
I make a motion to suspend the 2 reading rule for resolution 21-1166.
Mr. Parsons has made a motion to suspend.
I'll second.
Ms. Ringo, seconded.
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George? Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, the Two reading rule's been suspended. Questions or comments yet? And what is your pleasure? Ask for a motion.
Make a motion to adopt Resolution 21-1166.
Ms. Lingo has made a motion to adopt. Do you have a second? Mr. Parsons?
Mrs. Lingo?
Aye.
Mrs. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Redding?
Aye.
Mrs. Dosa?
Aye.
Mr. George? Ms. Sheets?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, a resolution number 21-1166 is adopted.
Just one more point of reference. I will get clearance from the law director that we're okay doing that before we do put them up, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Old business. I know there's some out there.
I have a couple of old business questions. What's the status of this traffic study on Stevens? I saw they had the counters out there a few weeks ago.
I haven't received a
Haven't
report
received-
back yet.
Okay. When's the light coming out on Compton at Werner?
I think within the week. There was some materials, different materials that had to be added. They couldn't put in the same type of column. They got permission to.
It was a problem with the crosswalk warning light.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. The picnic tables and pavilions that we bought with the COVID grant, I've seen picnic tables out. What about the pavilions?
Pavilions were delivered last week.
Delivered?
Yep,
And
last
who-
week.
They need to be, who's
Our
installing?
guys will install them, but.
Our people?
Yeah, but right now with grass and everything, I mean, it'll probably, when things slow down, is when they'll be able to probably get to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had one more thing.
Mhm.
Several years ago, we got the grant from Safe Routes to School for the sidewalks on Compton. They started last week. Looks like they'll be done this week.
Yeah, they'll go quick.
They're going very fast.
Yep, yep.
That's all I have for old business.
Anybody else hold business?
Yes. Again, Bill requested that we make a decision on the sidewalks on the north side of, on the north portion of Elizabeth Street. So,
And I'll just add a few things, kind of kept quiet during this process and let the whole thing go. We will work with our arborists. Greg's already done that. We'll get information back to him, and I'll report back to you on what they feel. A little of this is hard because, two of the red oaks that they're talking about, two of the probably the most mature, are being requested to be removed by the property owner.
Right.
So there is, that piece of it. The other red oaks that are outside of the scope of the project now is, we'll work with the arborists to get clarification on those, and hopefully, those things will survive. If they don't, we can always, we'll always can revisit this, but we will get that information, and I'll be reporting back to you guys.
What will we do if they won't survive?
I mean, we'll make a decision. I mean, if the arborist comes back to us and says, yeah, there's a good chance that these trees, just from the street project, are going to be damaged and could decay or whatever, I mean, that's something I think we can maybe consider or not. It's up to you guys. I mean, typically, that's what an arborist tries to look at.
When I'm thinking about the construction, to me, the tree damage is going to be with the street construction more than the sidewalk, wouldn't it? How far down do you go on a sidewalk? Isn't it going to be when you go down into that
It
and
could.
reconstruct the
I
street?
mean, I've talked to Karen, some of the routes are close to where the streets will be. Again, I think it depends on, again, what side, I think if we can talk maybe and key in on what side we're talking, or if we're talking no sidewalks, it's a moot point, right? I mean, at least for the sidewalk piece, we'll still do the arborist. If it's just on one side, then I think one side, I think is probably less impactful for the trees. I mean, the trees in front of the farm, I mean, the farm's fence is in the right of way.
Well, I know.
And I mean, so there's a lot of things that we're doing that we don't need to do that we're going to do, make it right? So that will be done. Those trees there will be. There's another one that is slated to be removed there. But if we don't do that, if we don't do the sidewalk on the west side of the street, then the two red oaks are still going to be removed by the request of the property owner, which we try to work with property owners when we do this. So so there's that piece of this. So I'll just turn it back to council, and if we would like direction, because we want to sit down with I talked to the contractor today, said there's still some things up in the air. They're ordering the material for the water lines, but I'd like to get direction and move on from this.
Okay.
When do you think you'll hear from the arborist?
For what?
I thought you said you.
I am. Greg and I are going to schedule a time to meet with the arborist and identify what trees will be impacted just by the street project. And again, if there's not sidewalks going on the east side, so that's not really a discussion of what we're here for, right? I mean, there could be trees that he could say, yeah, the street work could impact a tree that, even though you're not now putting a sidewalk on there.
Okay, council, so we need to have some decisions and some questions asked about, do we put sidewalks on Elizabeth Street? Do we put them on one side, both sides, which side? Don't put any in?
You got 5 options. A, no sidewalks. B, 2 sidewalks. C, 1 sidewalk on the west side, 1 sidewalk, D, 1 sidewalk on the east side. And E, expand the street and add a walk lane on one side of the street. So
that would be,
That is
after you bid this project, that would be.
That's a major engineering change.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wouldn't recommend that
So,
route.
okay. So E's out.
We also talked about the tree lawn. That, what they had planned was pretty wide, and they usually do that because they're gonna
7
plant
foot was
trees
the
in there.
plan.
So that,
That could be reduced,
that
absolutely.
can be reduced. However, probably not, when I went on that looking, I was hoping we could reduce it, almost have the sidewalk up against the curb, but that couldn't be done because of the power lines, correct?
Well, again, I think the idea is to have a little bit of a buffer there too, typically with a sidewalk, to have. But yeah, we could work. It maybe in some areas it can be, we can work with our engineer and the contractor to say, look, we want it to be, 3 feet minimum. If it has to go 4 feet because of a utility concern, then that, it can be moved in that way, but try to minimize it,
Because the tree lawn was pretty wide.
Yes, yep.
It
And that-
starts at 7 feet, then it goes down to 5. So,
Right. Right.
that's down to 3. That saves a lot of,
Yeah.
lot of room.
Yes, so, and I think Jamie and I had a discussion with, I forget the gentleman's name,
Fritz Sorens.
Fritz, he said no less than 3. And,
Right.
yeah,
He
I would
does
agree with
utility
that.
work and
Yeah,
lives
for all
on
the
street.
utility work.
We wouldn't want to go that, yeah.
Okay.
Unless there's some unheard of thing, but the idea is of that buffer there, so.
I think there should be at least 1 sidewalk on the street. Now, again, which side? Who wants it on their side? Maybe nobody wants it on their side, but I do believe that we need to, I think we need to have 1 sidewalk at least. I get the whole point about the street. I don't want people walking in the street. I don't want that. And then, now we hear about a speed bump? You gotta be kidding me. A speed bump? There's no way we're gonna put a speed bump in there. You know how many streets really deserve a speed bump? Oh my gosh. I get that, and I think the request is fine, but I just feel like there needs to be a sidewalk on one side. Now, what side do you put it on? I felt a little bit like I live in the wrong part of town. I'm just going to tell you. And there are a lot of people that walk up and down my street that maybe I'm a little worried about, but they're in my neighborhood. And I'm just going to tell you that. And I get the whole thing if I lived in that beautiful area like that, but I can't in good faith know that there are kids walking to that farm and other people walking there. And I was a little put off by the We Thrive letter. I just want to say that. Because all we've been told through this whole thing with We Thrive is we want a walkable community. And then to say that, well, you can have a walkable community without sidewalks. Oh my gosh, we're talking about putting up speed cameras because people can't safely walk across streets. And I know we're talking about in the end of a street here, but I just feel like as a person that has got this, responsibility, that I feel like at least one sidewalk needs to be put on that street. That's just my opinion. Now, which side?
One side.
What's, you know?
I will go second. I live on St. Clair with Jenny. She's talking about Debbie and I when we're walking up. No, I live, we specifically moved where we moved on St. Clair because it's the dead end, okay? And I get and respect what the folks currently living on Elizabeth are going through and what they want to maintain and keep. The dead end side of St. Clair, I mean, there is very few things to complain about there. But one of the things on St. Clair is there are sidewalks on both sides. And there's access to cut through at the end of the street onto Bernard. Well, sometimes we get that. I understand that concern. But I feel like there should be at least one sidewalk for safety's sake. I know cars will most likely park on the west side, and my reason for the one sidewalk and putting it on the east side is that everybody if the sidewalks are used, we'll do our best to say, hey, please use the darn sidewalks. The sidewalks are used, then the people driving up and down the street will see those people most of the times. You won't have, hopefully the incidents down there will be few. So that's what I'm thinking.
I mean, we can do that, and we can work with the contractor to minimize the minimum of 3 feet where possible for the strip between the sidewalk and the curb. It has to go out slightly, because of utility or something like that. We're not going to move a utility pole. We don't want to put a pole in the middle of the street. We also have hydrants that will be along there, so we'll have to make sure that that's coordinated as well, because you want that on the east side.
Now, on the west side, that's where the 2 trees are that the people say they want taken down, no matter what. So on that side, I realize we've got the fence down there by Tikkun, and we've got the trees that we said we would replace the trees, right?
No, we're going to move the fence.
Move the fence, okay.
We said we tried to talk about
Okay.
a Boy Scout project, but they said
All right.
no.
Okay, so is it easier on that side to minimize that tree lawn? And are the trees less impacted?
I mean, right now on the plans, there's the 2 oaks that have requested have been removed, and then there's one other, besides the flowering plums that we know are that were planted well with outside of the right of way, there's one other tree. On the other side, I don't believe that there's.
The retaining wall could affect the pine, but there's nothing slated on the other side of the street.
Now, could the arborist say, hey, this could put some stress on this tree, and
Right.
we'll address, we'll work with that, but there's nothing, scheduled to be removed.
On the west side, you're that much closer to the houses. The east side's farther from the houses. The east side has
Right.
the handicapped resident who
Right.
wants to use his wheelchair.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? What's your opinion?
I think the east side.
I think the east side, one on the east side.
Okay.
One sidewalk.
All right, and we'll minimize the width.
What do you think, Cindy?
Within 3 feet.
I would have liked to be very honest, 2 sidewalks. My compromise is 1. With my son, I'm very aware of the disability things, and you just never know when that's
agree.
going to happen. And I think, traffic is totally different today than it was when
Agree.
my son was growing up, when it's just a different world. I'm on Hickman, just parallel to Elizabeth. I've probably tried to pay attention to people walking. We have a couple people that walk the dogs, but they're from our neighborhood that are walking, so I don't see additional traffic down our street. The car traffic, with very few of the people that come down our street go to the cul-de-sac to turn around. They use somebody's personal driveway, so even though we have the cul-de-sac to be able to turn around, they don't use it. I mean, some of them do, but I would say 75% of them don't use it. And so that's my compromise. I do think we should go to a narrow, a 3 feet for the tree line, or whatever it's called. But the world happens and changes so quickly, and I think that's who we have to think about.
And the only other thing, I know there was some discussion about at the end, why no cul-de-sac, and I think I shared this with you, I don't know if it came up at the committee
Yes.
meeting, is just the topography, utilities, there are too many issues, and that's why the road was put the way it was.
Right.
But it will be similar to Hickman, though, where it's not a cul-de-sac, but at least you may have, you can't even do that now? Okay.
Oh,
That's,
Okay.
yeah. it's
So it'll just
a dead end.
dead end at the
To the
width
private
of the
drive,
street?
right.
Okay.
But weren't they going to do some work down there, though, and they were going to pave that part?
Yeah, they are. The business, or the property owners down there have, all but 2 have signed. Yeah, so they're gonna improve the cul-de-sac on the private property.
Right.
And there will be some improvement of that roadway as well, but
Which
there's no.
should be nice for
Very
the
nice.
people down there.
I didn't get any pushback on that.
Big
Everybody was
water
pleased.
issues.
Yeah. And we're gonna, this is gonna add water. I mean, this is gonna collect water better, and so that's down there.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing everybody, one sidewalk, east side, minimize the tree line.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Got it.
Now, seriously, can I add one more thing? I appreciate everybody coming up, including Ann. I mean,
The work was very thorough.
yes, I appreciate the work. And trust me, so,
Thank you.
absolutely.
We're here for.
Any other old business, council?
I make a motion to adjourn.
New business.
Going to new business.
New business.
Right over new business.
I tell you what,
I know.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We have a second?
I'm driving.
know I
me
did.
bananas.
You have to go home.
Seconded that.
No, I got all my stuff.
Second long meeting.
Ms. Dosa seconded.
I've been up since 4.
Whoa.
I knew this was gonna be a long one.